BBC Three Counties Radio, first for news.
Everything all right, Catherine?
Everything's fine.
Just a little, kept us on the edge of our seats at the beginning of that report. What was going on?
Well, I just thought I'd try dramatic pause.
It worked. I'd say go for longer next time.
OK.
That was awkward. Morning. Thank you, Catherine. Excellent, as always. I'm in a good mood this morning. I don't know if it's this swimming thing. I've been swimming 2 days in a row. I'm going to go today as well. I know. I don't know if it's making me in a good mood, but something's happening. It's funny, I'm the... You know you're in a strange place when you're the youngest person there. I'm the youngest person in this pool. So it looks like I'm really brilliant at swimming, because it's just loads of old people. You know, old people doing that thing that they do in swimming pools where they hold like a tiny blue dumbbell. You know, and they like bounce around with a dumbbell. But obviously doesn't weigh anything because it's made of foam. How heavy can a foam dumbbell really be? Anyway, this swimming, I don't know, it's doing something to me. It's making me a bit perky, a bit frisky. Lots on the show this morning. Some interesting ones that I think you might want to have your say on. I'll tell you how to get in touch in a bit. But the three things we've got coming up in this hour. Should there be brothels exclusively for disabled people? A former madam from Milton Keynes certainly thinks so. She wants to open one. What do you think about that? Also, have you been cured or conned by complementary medicine? We'll find out why there's little scientific evidence that it helps to treat arthritis. Keen to get your stories on that. Chinese herbal medicine, crystals, is it Reiki? Reiki. And homeopathy. That whole thing, what do you reckon? Is it a load of old nonsense, or do you swear by it? And also, there's a growing complaints culture here in the UK. What's the best response you've ever had from a company? Lots to talk about and lots of ways to get in touch. Go to the Facebook page, please. Facebook.com/BBC3CR. You can send us a text, 81333, starting your text 3CR. But these kind of topics this morning, I think, are best investigated by having a chat. I'd like to challenge you, and I'd like you to challenge me. Look, all of the lines are free at the moment, not one phone call lined up, so why don't you be the first? 08459 455 555. A prize of absolutely nothing to the first person to call up and come on the air. 08459 455 555.
BBC Three Counties Radio.
A former madam from Milton Keynes says she wants to open the country's first brothel for disabled people. Becky Adams says she hopes it will open next year and will be fully accessible to people regardless of their disability. We sent our escort correspondent, Justin Dealey, out, and he's been speaking to people at the Disability Resource Centre in Dunstable to find out what they think.
I personally wouldn't use one, but I do know there are people that may need, we all have needs, and people do find it hard to meet if they've got disabilities. I can't see why it wouldn't work.
My question is why not? If it's legal and it's not breaking the law in any shape or form, then everyone has that right to choose.
Well, Peter, we've heard from a few men that say this would work. As a lady, can you see this brothel working?
I think it could do. When I used to live in London, there was one on my estate, and that seemed to work for disabled people. My ex-husband's view was that if they can't get it anywhere else and these ladies are offering us a discreet service, then why not?
Do you think some people will be outraged by this, though?
I think if they're shallow-minded, then yes, they probably would be, if they don't think about the bigger picture. It might be difficult for some disabled people to find a partner, and this is fulfilling a need that they have. And say if it's discreet, then what's the problem?
Justin Dealey there, speaking to people at the Disability Resource Centre in Dunstable. Well, Carrie Mitchell is a spokeswoman for the English Collective of Prostitutes. Morning, Carrie.
Good morning.
What do you make of this idea?
Yes, absolutely. Women should be able to open a parlour, and women should be able to work their safely together. It's as one of your commentators said, it's a service that people need. And that's absolutely right. The problem is that women working together at the moment, it's criminalised. For women, more than one woman to work from premises is an offence. So this will be very good if Becky Adams is ready to open something and be public about it. That would be very good.
And what do you think about specifically the aspect that this would be primarily for disabled people? Is it how much business comes from disabled people?
Well, there are very, very many people with disabilities, and particularly people with access disabilities. A premises which has the facilities, the washing facilities, all the access facilities set up, would of course be very useful indeed.
So I guess this would mean things like ramps in and out, hoists to get people in and out of the bed, things like that.
There very well may be, yes, certainly. I mean, that's quite normal, isn't it, to have a ramps? I mean, people use ramps, a hoist isn't out of this world. I mean, very many people in their homes are using hoists, so why not use these same facilities in a brothel?
In your experience, Carrie, do prostitutes generally understand the particular needs of disabled people?
Well, it's not unusual at all for sex workers to have people with disabilities as clients. Very many women do. Women provide services for people in all different situations, and if people have a particular disability, that's just one more situation.
One thing, I guess, is if this was legalised just for people with disabilities, then people who are not disabled might, I don't know, get a limp on, or they might fake a disability so they can have access.
That's not how the law works, though, is it? That's not how the law would work. The question of the law is that women should be able to work together for safety, and it shouldn't be an offence. I mean, sex is, prostitution is consenting sex and shouldn't be an offence under the law anyway. It shouldn't be an offence to sell sex. It shouldn't be an offence to buy sex. It's just consenting sex, and that's how it should be.
How do you think people living in an area like Milton Keynes, where this is planned, would feel about this kind of establishment opening? Or do you not care about how they feel?
Well, our experience is that most people feel that, are not concerned. I mean, there are very many brothels,
really?
Parlours. Yes, absolutely.
I would have thought that most people would have been concerned if there had been a brothel opening in their street.
There are very many brothels in very many high streets.
Really?
And people are not concerned.
I'm so naive.
You are.
I am naive, Carrie.
You are. But there are brothels everywhere, and people are not generally concerned one iota. It's just another shop facility in your high street.
Carrie, thanks very much for coming on. Nice to talk to you.
You're welcome.
Carrie Mitchell, spokeswoman for the English Collective of Prostitutes. What do you think? Dear listener, I want to hear from you. Do you think there should be brothels exclusively, and let's try and stay on that track if we can, exclusively for disabled people? Would you object if there was one in your street? Carrie seems to think that no one objects these days to a parlour, a brothel in the street. No one minds. Would you mind if it's exclusively for disabled people? It's offering a service for those who may be considered to be slightly disadvantaged. 08459 455 555. The lines are free. Give us a call. You can be the first person on the show. Speak to you after this. Mike Oldfield. Morning, Iain Lee, BBC Three Counties Radio. Should there be legalised brothels for disabled people? 08459 455 555. Maybe you think, do you know what? It's a fair play. It's a social need. That it's a requirement. It helps people who are slightly disadvantaged. Why not? Or perhaps you think it's disgusting and it shouldn't be allowed at all. Later on in the show, remind me to tell you about the abuse I got yesterday on Twitter for saying I didn't like David Bowie. Oh, man. She's the one. Gary Kemp from Spandau Ballet got involved. He had a cheeky little dig at me for liking the Monkees. I'll tell you about that later on. Now, this morning, we're continuing with our look at housing-related issues, and today we're focusing on repossessions. More and more people face having their homes repossessed as they struggle to keep up with their mortgage payments. One council in Buckinghamshire runs a special service designed to help people stay in their own homes. Aylesbury Vale District Council's housing debt officers are able to argue the case for individuals before a judge at repossession hearings. David is one of those who benefited from their help. He spoke to our reporter, Tony Fisher.
I was thrown into a situation whereby I was unable to keep up with my mortgage repayment for almost 1 year. The arrears accumulated, and the Bank of Scotland decided to repossess the mortgage. And I was referred to credit counselling advisors, and also a letter was sent to the Aylesbury Vale District Housing Debt Advisors.
So she was able to liaise with all the different agencies, government, inland revenue, and your mortgage provider. And what was the outcome of that? Was that successful?
Yes, it was very successful because I couldn't see the possibility of me being able to reach that agreement without her advice. So she was able to speak to the Halifax Bank of Scotland, my mortgage lender, and presented all my documents.
She was able to present your case for you, vouch for you in your situation, and provide all your financial details.
Exactly, and was able to convince them and to let them know that I have the right to be given the option of interest-only repayment to give me time to secure a job.
Well, the council says it costs them about £30,000 to house a homeless person. Therefore, it's in their interest to try and ensure people stay in their own homes, especially in view of the shortage of housing stock. Deborah McRae is the Housing Debt Advisor for Aylesbury Vale District Council.
People want to stay in their own home and often their circumstances will improve in the future. So it's really just seeing them through a difficult time in a lot of cases and then they will be able to resume their payments later.
So you say you've had an increase of people coming to see you. Have you got any ideas of numbers or figures? Or
Usually about 65 to 80 referrals a month at the moment, which is quite substantial, and they're all very different.
Is that quite a big jump from last year or the year before?
Yes, it has been recently an increase, but it's been very steady over the years.
And so you think mostly about 90% of those referrals you can deal with and hopefully keep people in their own homes?
Yes, absolutely, yes. In most cases we can keep people in their homes and negotiate something that's affordable. By looking at the whole situation, the whole financial statement and dealing with all the debts, because otherwise people are always robbing Peter to pay Paul.
Does every council provide this service?
No, we're a unique service for councils in the area, and we've evolved over time, really sort of developing a lot of skills to be able to deal with all the complexity of cases these days, yeah.
You could argue that the service you provide is very valuable and more councils should provide it, especially in these current economic climate.
Absolutely, yes, and I do believe that councils are looking at doing that more in the future.
Well, Luton is one of the areas in Beds, Herts and Bucks with a severe housing crisis. The town is also top of the list in the 3 counties for repossessions. The council funds the Luton Law Centre to provide a similar service to that in Aylesbury. On the line now is Tom Shaw, the councillor responsible for housing on Luton Borough Council. Morning, Tom.
Morning, Ian.
How does Luton deal with people who are faced with repossession?
We've got various ways we deal with it. One of the first ones we just said, the law centre actually has someone on duty on repossession day, on eviction day at the county court, so we can give advice. But before they even get there, the council itself has dedicated housing solution officers, and all their job is to deal with the mortgage companies, the landlords, everybody, to see if we can keep the people in their own house.
And how effective is that, Tom?
It's very effective. Well, last year we had, in total, 485 people came to us as homeless. Not all repossessions, some of those are being moved out of private sector accommodation. But the total number of repossessions what came to us was 271. But we only, in the end, had to accept 138 of those as homeless after repossessions.
Why is Luton then top of the list in the 3 counties for repossessions?
It's top of the list because the town suffered very badly over the last 3-4 years with loss of jobs. We're a construction town. We've got a lot of construction workers live in the town. And the stupid part about it is it's the construction workers what have been laid off. There's not as much work around for them. If we were building the houses we wanted to be building, the construction workers would be working. It's but the schemes that Aylesbury Vale have got is we've had in Luton for 3 or 4 years now.
Tom, what happens to those people who are repossessed? When do they become the council's responsibility to rehouse?
The moment we accept them as unintentionally homeless, and then they're our responsibility. You've run stories yourself over the last couple of months where we've bought blocks of flats in Milton Keynes, and we've got a block in Enfield. we're pretty proud on Christmas Eve in Luton we only had one person in bed and breakfast, and that was an elderly person what she needed a special care home, and we managed to get her in one on Christmas Day.
Fantastic. There are some people who might say, when it comes to repossessions, that it's the individual's fault for taking on a mortgage that is risky at best. How much to blame are the individuals, and how much to blame are the mortgage providers?
The mortgage providers used to be fair to everyone, used to be to blame when they used to give mortgages out at 3.5, 4 times a person's earnings. But it's like, take the Vauxhall site at the moment where it's gone down to single working now. 300 people have gone. How can you blame those people? They've lost their job. If they can't pay the mortgage, now you won't get it. It's very rare that for your benefits you'll get your interest payments. That's why we've had to do something. We've put a rent deposit scheme into place now, where people what have been either repossessed or evicted can actually come to the council, and we'll give them the deposit, or lend them the deposit to move into the private sector, so they don't become, dependent on bed and breakfast or temporary accommodation.
Tom Shaw, I appreciate your time. Tom Shaw there, the councillor responsible for housing on Luton Borough Council.
Sophie Tyler, BBC, Three Counties Radio.
You right, Soph?
Yes, thank you.
Yeah, how do you get into work? Do you get the trains, or do you drive? What route do you use?
I cycle.
You cycle?
Yeah.
And how was the traffic this morning, all right?
It was crazy.
It was crazy, because I thought you started at sort of 6, and you weren't there. We had James, and it was all a bit. Was everything all right?
James just really, really wanted to talk to you.
Okay, so you weren't late for work or anything?
Okay, my alarm didn't go off this morning, but luckily I live very close.
Your alarm didn't go off?
Honest, my phone died in the night, and that's what my alarm.
You can't use your phone as an alarm. Use an alarm as an alarm.
I don't wake up to them. They don't.
What does? You don't wake up to those loud, irritating noises.
Amazingly not. I know, it baffles me too.
Sophie Tyler. Oh, I love it. Sophie Tyler, thank you very much indeed. Right, 6:30, let's get the latest news and sport now. Catherine Boyle.
Call 08459 455 555.
08459 455 555.
BBC Three Counties Radio.
Thank you, Catherine. Morning, just gone 6:30. Lots coming up in the next 30 minutes or so, including find out why you're more likely to complain now than 5 years ago if you have problems buying goods or services. What's the best response you've had from a company when you complained? I can't do it. I can do it on the phone. I can't do it face to face. I couldn't go into a shop and complain. Oh no, I couldn't do that. And have you been cured or conned by complementary medicine? Arthritis Research UK will be on this programme to explain why they think there's little scientific evidence to suggest that it works. Has it worked for you? I used to believe in all of that nonsense, and then I grew up. Chinese herbal medicine, bit of bark tea, Reiki. What on earth is Reiki? Is that the thing where you wave your hands over them? Homeopathy. Oh, my goodness gracious me. It's Tina Turner. I don't know why that makes me laugh. It just does. I prefer steamy windows coming from the body heat. Morning, Iain Lee, BBC Three Counties Restaurant. Now, the restaurant, I tell you why I'm saying restaurant. Now I'm thinking there's a business idea. BBC Three Counties Restaurant. We have Nick Coffer cooking. We have Jonathan Vernon Smith as the maitre d'. Me being one of the waiters. Helen Lee being a waitress. It all works out. What started as a slip of the tongue is turning into a very lucrative idea. Let me speak to the bosses and see if we can make that happen. The reason restaurants are on my mind is because, supposing you're at a restaurant, right? And it's not very nice. BBC Three Counties Restaurant, it would be lovely. But the one you go to is not very nice. What do? Do you complain? I have taken the service charge off of the bill before. And the waiter said, I don't think you're allowed to do that. I said, oh, yes, I am. Oh, yes, I am. I once complained, and actually, I complain quite a lot now, I think, on it. I once complained in a restaurant because we went there for a Sunday breakfast, OK? And 45 minutes later, our breakfast hadn't turned up. And then my wife's turned up after 45 minutes. And I said, sorry, and mine is... what did you order? I said, right, what we're going to do is, my wife and I are going to share this breakfast, then we're going to get up and we're going to walk out without paying you. And the waitress went, yeah, OK. It's brilliant. Free breakfast. Or your microwave breaks, it's out of warranty. What are you going to do? Who are you going to call? Not the Ghostbusters, they can't help you. Well, research published by the Institute for Customer Service suggests there is a growing complaints culture here in the UK. You're more likely now than you were 5 years ago to moan when you're unhappy. Well, Professor Kerry Cooper is Professor of Psychology at Lancaster University. Professor, why do you think we're complaining more now?
Well, times are tough, Ian, and I think that's the difficulty. I mean, what's happening is, money's precious now. And when you go buy a product or you go out for a meal, because people are having probably less meals than they ever have before, given the downturn and everything else. And so I think basically you want value for money. You're much more conscious of what you're spending, and therefore the expectations are higher about what you should be getting back in return.
Without slurring your good country folk, Kerry, does it come from America, as a lot of these things do? Because you lot are always complaining.
No, Ian, you're absolutely right. Americans are real complainers. And by the way, they use the service charge. They use the tip in the States quite dramatically. Both ways, by the way.
Yeah.
So unlike here where we might go to a restaurant and give 10%, the Americans, if they really get good service, could give 25%.
Wow.
But if they don't get good service or what they expect, they might not give anything. So they actually use that a heck of a lot more than we do. We just automatically, it's a pro forma, isn't it? Most people just give 10% whether the service is good or not good.
I've always thought, Kerry, that in restaurants it would make more sense to tip the waiter before. Because if you give them a good tip before the meal, then you're going to get good service, aren't you?
Oh, that's an interesting one.
You can do a little thesis on that if you want.
Yeah.
Is there a good way and a bad way of complaining?
Yeah, I think the best way of complaining is to be non-emotional. I mean, if you're very emotional, so you go to a restaurant, the food is lousy, comes late and everything else. If you then complain, really in an aggressive way, you say, well, this steak is overdone, please, I said rare. They'll probably take it back, but God knows what they'll do in the kitchen.
This is the thing, isn't it? Yes.
So don't even go there. I think it's best to be try to be a bit rational, non-emotional. Be pretty specific and say, I'm really quite disappointed with this, and I really had higher expectations. And
you're making me want to cry now. I had higher expectations.
So you might get some money knocked off. You might get a free meal the next time you come to try to encourage you to come back. It could be anything, and I think it's just. And normally, it's not necessarily the fault of the person you're complaining to. That's the other problem. So a bad meal, or a product that doesn't work, it wasn't the person who sold it to you, you're going to customer service. So I think it's getting angry at the representative of that product or service, I don't think does them any good. And you want to get and it depends what you're trying to get out of this. And if you're trying to get something out of it, like you want a better meal the next time, you want the warranty to be honored, you want whatever you're looking for, the best way to do that is to be, I know you're feeling emotional because you're angry at not getting what you expected to get, but it's better to be just calm yourself down, be a bit rational, think to yourself, in a sense, what do I want to get out of why I'm complaining?
One of the new phenomenons is complaining on Twitter. People get really upset and they go to Twitter, and if you've got enough followers, I've done it, the company kind of steps in quite quickly, don't they, generally?
Which company? Oh, do you mean the company you're complaining to?
Just companies generally. If I go on Twitter and say such and such has given me terrible service and they won't give me a refund, a couple of times those companies have kind of got back in touch and said, whoa, hey, let's sort this out and be friendly. What are you after?
Yeah, you're right. I mean, social media is, they're quite worried about social media, quite a lot of organizations. I've seen a lot of Twitter as well that's complained about something. Also, it has much more of an impact in a way. Rather than you doing it in a restaurant or just calling up on a one-to-one. So social media, of course, goes more viral, but you have to be a bit careful about what you do when you complain, because you could get yourself in trouble, if you say something on there that, number one, isn't true. It may have happened to you, but didn't happen to anybody else.
One thing I found with complaining, and I'm remembering a story now. Years ago, I ordered some curtains from a very, very big store, and they said it would take, really expensive curtains, they said it would take 6 weeks for these curtains to come. So after 6 weeks, they hadn't come, and I phoned up, they said, there's been an error, it's going to be another 2 weeks. And I kind of got angry with the person on the phone and asked to speak to the head of department. They were all saying, we can't help. What I did, Kerry, was I then found the email address of the CEO of the company and sent an email to him saying, look, this is outrageous, what are you going to do? That day, I got an email from his secretary saying, we're really sorry about this, we'll get this sorted out as quickly as we can. How would £250 worth of vouchers make you feel, sir?
Very good. It's obviously you know the answers to these questions.
Is it right to kind of try and just go to the top?
going to the top works. It works for a lot of people because people at the top rarely get people going to them directly. And when a customer is going directly to somebody who's in a senior position, they'll make it happen. Because it's rare.
Yeah.
If a lot of people did that, they would just take all those complaints and give it to customer service and let them deal with it. But when a few people do it, it can be very powerful.
When was the last time you complained, Kerry?
I can't remember the last time I think I've been anglicized.
Oh, really?
You know what I mean?
Yeah.
Although I must admit it is changing. I am seeing it change now in the UK, and I think it's all about now people not having as much money, a bit frustrated, and also we lead such frenetic lives that we want things like the Americans have always done now.
Instantly,
we don't want it. We want it instantly. We don't want it yesterday. We don't want it in 6 weeks' time. We want it now.
Isn't that true? Yeah.
And people are actually saying, when a retailer says to you, listen, that's going to take 6 weeks to come. I'm surprised you waited 6 weeks. Most people would say, thank you very much.
Yeah.
I'll go somewhere else.
Kerry, listen, thank you very much. Professor Kerry Cooper, Professor of Psychology at Lancaster University. Fascinating. He's right, we do want it now, don't we? That patience. Well, yes, you'll have your sofa in 2 months' time. Well, can we not have it by Friday? That patience thing is gone. When was the last time you complained, dear listener? And what was the best result? My best result was with the curtains. £250 worth of vouchers for a very big store. Bought myself a dining table and 2 chairs to go with it. Wonderful. I couldn't believe my luck. 08459 455 555. Tips for complaining and the best result you've ever had for complaining. Someone I'd never complain about, even when she's late. Sophie Tyler in The Travel. Now, I'm sure lots of you out there have got experiences of complementary medicine. Maybe some of you have tried it out of desperation. Maybe you've always believed it. Has it worked for you? Or did you find it a complete con? I indulged. I used to believe in it a long time ago. Cards on the table. I think it's a load of old guff, to be honest. Reiki, homeopathy, that Chinese herbal nonsense. I don't want to diss, 1.6 billion people, but your medicine's rubbish. Well, a report shows that there's little scientific evidence to prove it works, particularly when it comes to arthritis and back pain. Arthritis Research UK carried out the research. Their medical director, Professor Alan Silman, joins us now. Good morning, Alan.
Good morning.
How did you assess the effectiveness of the treatments?
Well, what we did is we looked for any report that had been done where they had attempted to show that the treatment was more useful, for example, than either standard treatment or doing nothing for a whole range of these different therapies in a variety of different forms of arthritis. So we really scanned to find every single report that had been done on their effectiveness.
So you're looking at all kind of different aspects of arthritis. What treatments did you look at?
Oh, well, we looked at a whole range. We looked really at anything where a patient or a family could seek out treatment themselves from a complementary practitioner. Could be osteopathy, chiropractor, acupuncture, aromatherapy, yoga, tai chi. There was a very, very large number of people out there who are advertising their wares.
Now, isn't that interesting? Because I don't believe in any of this bunkum. I wouldn't consider osteopathy to be alternative medicine. And I use that, and it works for me. Oh God, I'm a hippie.
Well, I think the term alternative medicine tends to refer to those treatments that are sought out by the patient that are perhaps not offered through the conventional healthcare via your general practitioner or what have you. Although, for example, some, like acupuncture in particular, are now coming into mainstream use. I think one of the other things about these alternative therapies is often we don't know why they work. Patients often tell us they feel better, but from Arthritis Research UK really doesn't understand why they work. And if we don't know why they work, then obviously we have some suspicion and want to really know the details of how effective they are before we can tell patients, because I think the important thing here is that patients have the knowledge to make the right decisions and are not just responding to something that somebody else has told them.
So, Alan, are you saying that in the research that you sifted through, you found that some of these treatments did work, but you're discounting them because you don't understand how they work.
No, I think we started off, because we didn't understand how they worked, we wanted actually to find out whether they did work in trials. And even if we don't understand how they work, for example, acupuncture, if there is strong evidence that they do work, then we're happy to accept it. However, if, for example, something like aromatherapy, there's no biological, practical reason why it should work, then it makes sense to see whether in practice it does, and if it doesn't, then we can advise patients accordingly.
Did any of these complementary medicines have any significant effect on arthritis?
Oh yes, there were quite a few. Interestingly, acupuncture does seem to be quite effective in reducing pain.
Wow.
Yoga is useful, for example, in back pain. Even something like relaxation therapy. But often these treatments may not be because of the treatment itself, but because, for example, the patient who's taking the treatment believes it's doing them benefit, they feel good about it, and that feeling good process helps to reduce their pain. Now, we could call this the placebo response. We could call it a non-specific effect of having the treatment, but if it's reducing pain, maybe that's important.
There are some people who, fans of homeopathy in particular, who give it to their dogs, and they say, well, it can't be the placebo effect because it's made Fido feel better, so it must really work.
Yeah, I mean, I think we do have to be careful here, and I think that's why it's important to look at evidence from well-conducted research studies where they've looked at a large number of patients, done the proper comparison and the proper appropriate methods. And I think that's important. And I think there's a large number of treatments, and your listeners can go onto the Arthritis Research UK website, have a look at the report, have a look at their favourite treatment, and see what evidence there is to support whether it's useful or not for them.
Now, you're the medical director, you're a professor. I'm guessing, would assume from that you are a man of science, Alan. Have you ever indulged in complementary medicine?
Indeed, I have. I went to see a chiropractor because of back pain some years ago.
And it worked, didn't it?
And it worked.
Yeah.
But I think the other important thing is often these things don't work for everybody.
Yes.
And also, often, if you have something like back pain, you're often in a hurry to get it better. And we know that for many people with back pain, even just taking general regular exercise and looking after themselves, they will recover spontaneously anyway. So maybe I thought it worked.
Alan, thank you very much indeed. That's Medical Director Professor Alan Silman from Arthritis Research UK. I'm always surprised when osteopathy is mentioned as a complementary medicine, as though it's slightly fringe. It's always worked for my back. Always. Go and see Brian. Brian's brilliant. Always works. Quite often works if I get a long run of headaches as well. It quite often sorts that out. Wonderful. But I'd forgotten about aromatherapy. We smell to get well. Now, that's obviously nonsense, isn't it? And people say, oh, well, if you can't sleep, try put a bit of lavender oil on your pillow. No, it doesn't work. How is lavender oil going to make me sleep? Yeah? Homeopathy. Arnica, really? You know what homeopathy is, okay? It's a tablet that's been made by getting something, for example, arnica, whatever that is, and then filtering it so it's like 1,000th of the strength and putting it in a little tablet. Well, how is that going to work? And can someone phone up and tell me what Reiki is? That's the bit where you just put hands over people, isn't it? It's all complete and utter acupuncture. I've had acupuncture. It flipping hurts. Those needles, it won't hurt. Yes, it will. It's a needle going into my calf muscle. It hurts and it does nothing.
BBC Three Counties Radio, first for news.
You made me laugh. I forgot about copper and magnetic treatments. I've got a Greek aunt who's bonkers, and she has this bracelet that's like magnetic, right? And she goes, no, it works. It makes me stronger, okay? So
really?
She does. She takes it off, and then she goes, right, push my arm down, and you push her arm down really easily. Then she puts it on, and she goes, right, now try and push my arm down. And it's a little bit harder, because what she's doing is she's tensing her arm.
But Mark, they worked for Wonder Woman, didn't they?
They did work for Wonder Woman, yes. Thank you, Catherine. Morning, this is Iain Lee, BBC Three Counties Radio. Lots for you to get involved with. We've got a couple of lines free. I will give you the details in a minute, so sit tight. Some of the things we're talking about in the next hour include: should there be brothels exclusively for disabled people? A former madam from Milton Keynes certainly thinks so. She wants to open one. We'll be speaking to her in the next few minutes. You heard me talking there about complementary medicine. Have you been cured or conned? Well, there's little scientific evidence that it helps to treat arthritis. What's your experience? Reiki? Copper and magnets? Aromatherapy? Oh, you don't, do you? Homeopathy? Chinese herbs? No, none of it works. And there is a growing complaints culture here in the UK. What's the best way of complaining? And what's the best thing you've got? Because you complain. I got 250 quid's worth of vouchers for a high street store. Beautiful. You can go to Facebook and have a little argument with some people there. Facebook.com/BBC3CR. You can send us a text, 81333, starting your text 3CR, or you can give us a call, 08459 455 555.
BBC Three Counties Radio.
A former madam from Milton Keynes says she wants to open the country's first brothel for disabled people. Madam Becky hopes to open the facility next year and says she would employ prostitutes who understand the needs of disabled people. I'll be talking to her in a couple of minutes. But first, BBC Three Counties brothel reporter Justin Dealey has been speaking to disabled people about this. Morning, Justin.
Yes, hello, Ian.
Where exactly have you... Sorry. I realised it wasn't the most glamorous. Yeah. Where exactly have you been and who have you been talking to?
Well, some very interesting views coming in. I'm in Dunstable this morning. I've been talking to people at the Disability Resource Centre in the town about these plans for this disabled brothel, and this is what they've had to say, Ian.
I think it's a very brave step for her to take, and I think it's one to be congratulated, although I wouldn't want to be trying to sort out the legalities of it personally.
You know disabled people who have used prostitutes in the past. What was their experience like?
I think a lot of it was very positive, although clearly, often, they may well have been involved with street girls, where, frankly, the experience wouldn't have been very good. But there were a lot of them who would have said to me, I've had guys say to me, they developed quite a long-term friendship with them, where it was a business relationship, but where their needs were well met. And, if that solved their frustrations, then I can fully understand why they did it.
We're being quite detailed with our conversation here, but you talk about these needs. This brothel we're talking about here, if it had disabled access, you would presume people would use this, and this would clearly work.
Presumably it would. It'll be interesting to see how they will market it and how the public will react to it. One hopes the public will quietly accept it, as they do so many other brothels throughout the United Kingdom, but one has to wait and see.
I personally wouldn't use one, but I do know there are people that may need, we all have needs, and people do find it hard to meet if they've got disabilities. I can't see why it wouldn't work.
And lastly, a word with yourself, sir. You actually know somebody who's booked a prostitute for their disabled son. They've actually made that call, haven't they?
Yes, that's correct. The parents felt it would benefit his continuing growth. He was a fairly young lad, around about 19, 20, and they paid for an escort to spend some time with him, like I say, to give him the experience of a sexual relationship.
That's Justin Dealey talking there. Well, we're joined now by Mick Scarlett, who is from Luton and campaigns for disabled people's rights. Morning, Mick.
Morning.
We'll come to you in a second. First of all, though, I want to speak to Madam Becky, whose idea this is. Morning, Becky.
Good morning, Three Counties. How are you?
Very well, thank you very much. What prompted you to come up with this idea?
Well, obviously, as you know, I've run houses of ill repute for many years. And we had disabled customers, of course, and we did our best for them, and they went on their way. But it wasn't until my book was nominated for the Erotic Awards. And the Erotic Awards are run by the Outsiders Project. And the Outsiders Project are a group that help disabled people find romance or sort of sexual partners. And getting involved with the Outsiders Project, I suddenly realised that even after sort of 20 years in the sex industry, I knew very little about how difficult life was for people with disabilities. And I was quite ashamed of myself and very, very humbled.
What kind of response, Becky, have you had from disabled people about this idea?
Oh, hugely positive. Hugely positive. I mean, bearing in mind that already there is a not-for-profits organisation that I run that finds sex workers for disabled people already, and that has been going for some time. So it's not a completely new thing.
Becky, let me speak to Mick. Mick, how do you feel hearing about this?
Well,
it's quite difficult, really, because I do find the whole subject quite annoying. I think it's really sad that, yet again, we're focusing on the tiny number of people who are both disabled and who may want or feel they need to use the services of a prostitute to fulfil a need for a sexual encounter. I think what's really sad is that the majority of disabled people don't and will never want to. I think what was funny is you went to that place in Dunstable and you talked to all those people and they all said, I wouldn't do it, but I know someone that might.
Yeah, friend of a friend. Yes.
No one wants it, and I think the thing is yes, there are people out there who have a life experience that means that they don't have the chance, and that's more to do with the attitude of society and also the confidence that they feel about this subject.
But Mick, we heard there from the fella talking about his friends. They've got a 19-year-old lad. I hope you remember what it's like to be 19. You're full of raging hormones, and and if he's unable for whatever reason to get a relationship, then that it's a positive service, isn't it? Hiring someone who can perform that specific need to help that lad along.
See, the thing is surely the majority, not the majority, but there is quite a large number of 19-year-olds who also aren't disabled and find it quite difficult to find a sexual partner. And so what, is that just saying that it's the answer for everybody? Or is it just that only disabled people are just so tragic and unattractive that they have to use a prostitute?
So, Mickey, it sounds like
that's what it does, is it creates this impression that disabled people in some way are so unattractive that they have to use prostitutes, and so it's all right for them to do that, and it's all right to start up brothels for disabled people, and that it damages the way society thinks about disability.
Becky, you're damaging society's views on disability.
Well, that's a very interesting point on the thing. I think that, obviously, from my point of view, even if you're fabulous and a very well-paid footballer, people from all walks of society use prostitutes, and obviously I have my own views on that, having been in the business. It's a tricky one because, of course, my background isn't about people with disabilities. My background is sex, and I have a lot of people who come to me, some who are very, very sort of seriously disabled, soldiers returning from Afghanistan and all sorts of different injuries. And they say to me, for all sorts of various reasons, that they're not able to have sex. Many of them physically are incapable of relieving themselves. And I've also had groups of mothers who work as support networks for families with young boys with autism, and who come to me as groups of parents and say, this isn't going to happen for our son or our sons if we don't help them.
Oh, I feel so. If my mum got me a prostitute for whatever reason, I'd feel terrible.
Well, we're not just talking about the sex here. We're actually talking about helping young guys kind of interact with girls.
Mick, it's about interaction, and it's about people talking with girls, and it is a minority. Of course, it's minority. I don't want to say for a second that all disabled people can't pull because they're in a wheelchair or whatever. That's not the case. But there is a minority that are so severely disabled, isn't there, Mick, that they can't go out and interact on a social level.
See, I don't agree. I mean, I've got loads of friends who are, severely impaired with disabilities that mean they can't speak or that they can't dress or they need help all day with personal care, who have gone out and formed happy and loving relationships with people. And the thing is, it's to do with confidence. When you're a young disabled person, you're growing up, you live in a world where every time anyone mentions disability and sex, the subject of prostitution pops up. And they always say, well, it's only for the severe ones, the ones that have the problems, those ones.
Yes.
Then when you're one of them, you think, well, that's it, I'm never going to form a relationship. It destroys your own emotional confidence. So then when you are 19 and you're ready to go out into the world and you think, it's already too late. You already think, I can't have a relationship. And I'm not saying that there aren't people out there, but I'm as a campaigner, I campaign to make the world a better place. And so obviously we're talking I would like to make the world perfect, and some, other people want sort of look at the world and say this is how it is now. And I just think that it's all right to say, one day we'll live in a world, this is the way it is. But I don't think that it's a really legitimate reason to say, well, I'm going to open a brothel especially for disabled people, as if there's this huge market. It's kind of almost that the market, the idea feeds the market. If all disabled people are brought up to think, well, if you're really disabled, you're only going to get it if you go with prostitutes, then you're going to have that need because they aren't growing up to be confident enough to think, well, actually, there is someone out there for me. I've just got to go out there and look the same way everybody else does.
Mick, listen, stay there. Thank you very much. We're running out of time. Becky, very quickly, I know that you've had a lot of press about this. It's been in all the papers. It's been on the internet. Yeah. I know you very kindly turned down an appearance on This Morning to be with us today. Thank you for that. Is this actually going to happen, or is this just publicity for your book?
Oh, no. It's absolutely going to happen. It happens already. Obviously, we don't have a set location. We go to people, or we help people get to sex workers. So
how likely is it that this location, this brothel, this parlour, whatever you want to call it, is going to open in Milton Keynes?
It's possible it'll open in Milton Keynes, although there are other areas who already happily
this year
will licence massage parlours. So if Milton Keynes Council are really anti, then we will take it somewhere where the council are more sort of forthcoming.
Becky, we'll leave it there. Madam Becky Adams, who's talking about opening a massage parlour / brothel for disabled people. And Mick Scarlett from Luton and Campaigns for Disabled People's Rights. 08459 455 555. You can hear further discussions and debates about disabled people visiting prostitutes on our new show about disability and mental health, Shrink Wrapped, Sunday from midday. Oh, we're a little bit late, but I thought it was worth pursuing. Thank you, Becky. Thank you, Mick. If anything that we're talking about this morning interests you and you want to have your say, now is an excellent time to call 08459 455 555. Now, this morning we're continuing with our look at housing-related issues, and today we are focusing on repossessions. The housing charity Shelter says as we start the new year, almost 1.5 million people are in rent or mortgage arrears, which could leave them vulnerable to having their house repossessed. One council in Buckinghamshire runs a special service designed to help people stay in their own homes. Aylesbury Vale District Council's housing debt officers are able to argue the case for individuals before a judge at repossession hearings. David is one of those who benefited from their help. He spoke to our reporter, Tony Fisher.
I was thrown into a situation whereby I was unable to keep up with my mortgage repayment for almost 1 year. The arrears accumulated, and the Bank of Scotland decided to repossess the mortgage. And I was referred to credit counselling advisors, and also a letter was sent to the Aylesbury Vale District Housing Debt Advisors.
So she was able to liaise with all the different agencies, government, Inland Revenue, and your mortgage provider. And what was the outcome of that? Was that successful?
Yes, it was very successful because I couldn't see the possibility of me being able to reach that agreement without her advice. So she was able to speak to the Halifax Bank of Scotland, my lender, mortgage lender, and presented all my documents.
She was able to present your case for you, vouch for you and your situation, and provide all your financial details.
Exactly, and was able to convince them and to let them know that I have the right to be given the option of interest-only repayment to give me time to secure a job.
That's Tony Fisher speaking to David there, who almost had his house repossessed. Well, Shelter recently helped an elderly couple in Milton Keynes who are facing repossession. Robbie DeSantos is from the charity. Good morning, Robbie.
Good morning.
Almost 1.5 million people could be left at risk of having their homes repossessed. That's a lot of people, isn't it?
It is a lot, and it's a real sign of the times that we're living in. So many people are struggling to get by just every week. Lots of people seeing their incomes drop, lots of people finding their housing costs really unaffordable. So in a way, it's not a surprise that so many people are struggling to keep up with the mortgage or rent payments.
Whose fault is it? Is it that the people for borrowing too much? When I took my mortgage, I was kept in mind exactly how much I was earning, and also if I could afford to pay it when I stopped earning? Or is it the mortgage lenders for being too generous?
It's a mixture of factors, but we really did see some very reckless lending by mortgage lenders, especially in those years, the kind of what was the so-called boom years, up to about 2008. You saw no kind of checks and balances on the kind of mortgage lending that was happening. And so lots of people could just borrow huge amounts of money that they could never afford to pay back, and the lenders should have known that.
What sort of things can Shelter do to provide assistance for those who face losing their home?
So the main thing that Shelter does is provide advice to people at risk of losing their home. And when we say advice, we mean information and support and very kind of a whole range of different stuff to kind of help people be aware of their housing rights and then act on it so that they can keep their home. So we have a very comprehensive website at shelter.org.uk where we have advice on every single kind of aspect of any problem that you could have on housing. But we also run a free helpline for people who are struggling, which is 0800 0808 4444. And we also provide face-to-face advice services, and we've got a few in the Three Counties area. A big one in Milton Keynes and one in Hatfield as well.
You mentioned Milton Keynes, Robbie. I just said at the introduction that you recently helped an elderly couple in Milton Keynes who are facing repossession. What was the story there? What was their situation, and what did you do to help them?
In this situation, the couple had been living in their home for a long time and had, I think they'd actually paid off their mortgage, but then they remortgaged in I think 2004 to fund a business or to borrow more money, but they couldn't pay it back. And then because they borrowed this money on their home, they were at risk of losing their home despite having lived there for 50 years. So this couple came to Shelter, and we gave them advice and told them to, and supported them through the process of applying for what's called the Mortgage Rescue Scheme, which is a local council-run scheme to help people keep their home. It means that you effectively, the council buys your home and then rents it back to you as a kind of social housing. But it does mean that after all that time, you're still living in the home that you've lived in for however long, and you're not faced with having to move, having to find somewhere new, and all the kind of the transient and upheaval that comes with that. And if you've been living there for 50 years, you're really not going to want to move.
Some councils, Robbie, we've discovered, do provide assistance, and some don't. Do you think they all should?
I mean, it's really important that there is a proper housing safety net, so that if something does happen, and as you know, 1.5 million people are struggling at the moment, that there is support there for them. It's worrying that councils are cutting back on these schemes. But there are other ones out there. I think that the person that you were speaking to before was using the support for mortgage interest payment, which is a national scheme, and that means that you can, if you are struggling to keep up with your mortgage payments, you can convert to an interest-only mortgage and get support for those interest payments. So that can help you keep your home as well. So there is a range of things out there. But the most important thing is that people come to somewhere like Shelter and get advice as to what support they can get.
Is the number of people that are coming to you going up, Robbie?
Yeah, yes, it is. We're seeing huge volumes of people coming to us, and especially in the last few months. At the moment, there's big changes to the housing benefits people receive, and that's driving a huge amount of people to us because it is really affecting the people's ability to pay for their home. But we're also seeing homelessness rising for the first time in 10 years as well. In the last 2 years, it's been rising after a decade of decline. So we really are living in very tough times. And my advice to anyone would just be, if you're struggling, don't bury your head in the sand. Come to Shelter because we can help you get through your problems.
Robbie DeSantos from Shelter, thank you very much indeed.
The BBC in beds, hearts and bucks. This is BBC Three Counties Radio.
So I said yesterday on Twitter that David Bowie released his new single yesterday, and the internet, I need to say something vulgar then, got very excited. Oh, he got very excited. Everyone on Twitter, oh, Bowie's back. Oh, David Bowie. Oh, David Bowie. Oh. And I said on Twitter, David Bowie, calm down, Twitter. It's only David Bowie. He's only done 2 good songs, Changes and Dancing in the Street. Well, the backlash was incredible. I was getting abuse. I was getting people swearing at me. Some guy said, yeah, that's rich, coming from the poor man's Chris Morris. Oh, well done, a reference to something I did 12 years ago. It was awful. Gary Kemp from Spandau Ballet had a pop at me. He had a pop at me. I've got more followers than him on Twitter. He's got about 9,000, I've got 34,000, so I'm more popular than Spandau Ballet. I'm more popular than Gold. I am, and that was a number 1, so I could have been a number 1. It all kicked off, it got very, very nasty, and in the end I calmed everyone down by saying, look, I don't like the same pop star as you. That's it. I'm not 12, and this is not a playground. Now go away. Isn't it weird that the whole world yesterday went Bowie crazy, Bowie fever? It was on Sky News, it was on BBC News, it was on Radio 4, everyone. It's only a pop singer releasing a single. That's all. That's all. Calm down. We're talking about complaining. We are complaining more and more in this country. And I had to struggle to think of when I've complained. But then once I found a couple in my mind, the floodgates opened. Someone has texted in, 81333, starting their text 3CR. I took back some clothing to a shop the other day because it was defective and didn't notice it at the time. I told the lady I wanted a replacement, but I was polite the whole time. That's the secret of getting anything done. So many people shop online and, as a result, have lost the ability to hold a discussion. And then Colin and Hemel, my suggestion earlier on when we were talking to the professor about service charges and tips is I think you should tip before the meal. Don't tip after the meal. Tip before. Give them a good tip before. You will get the best service you have ever had. Colin Hemel says, Ian, you're correct. A tip is to ensure promptness. It used to be given before the meal. I might do that this week, like I'm going out for any meals this week. I've cut back completely on all my spending. I haven't been out for a meal for ages. But you should do it. Tip before the... When the waiter comes... Yes, sir, can I help you? Yes, I think you can. Here's 15 quid. Make sure we're well looked after. Thank you very much, sir. Then you order your meal. Never, and the professor said it, and you should never send food back in a restaurant. Never. Because you know what... Some of those chefs are dirty. You don't know what they're going to put in there. What are they going to rub on your steak? It's a sauce, and it's a sauce that you don't want. Or they get up to all kinds of mischief. If you've worked in a kitchen... Phone up, you can be anonymous. What have you done when someone sent back their food? I've heard stories.
And it's been announced that the disgraced cyclist Lance Armstrong, stripped of his 7 Tour de France titles because of doping charges, will give a primetime interview on US television to Oprah Winfrey next week. And that's your latest news and sport. More from me at 8 o'clock.
She's no Luke Ashmead or Jonathan Vernon-Smith, is she?
She certainly is not.
They would give him what for?
They wouldn't have had Tom Cruise bouncing on their sofas, that's for sure.
Jonathan would have told him off.
So do you do that at home? Get down.
Thank you, Catherine.
On FM, AM and online.
He would have done.
BBC Three Counties Radio.
JVS would have had stern words with Tom Cruise bouncing around on the sofas and the chairs. Jonathan is back next week, I believe. David Prever is filling in for him this week and doing a superb job, but JVS is back on Monday, I think, if this holiday ever ends. Coming up, excuse me, in the next 30 minutes, the government is to announce that low-risk offenders will be supervised by the private sector on a payment-by-results basis. We'll have a preview of that announcement next. A report claims there's a lack of evidence to prove complementary therapies work. Have you ever used them? Reiki, aromatherapy, copper and magnetic treatments? 08459 455 555. And also, we have a little treat for one of our favourite reporters here on BBC Three Counties Radio. 08459 455 555 is the telephone number if you want to give us a call. The government is announcing plans to overhaul the probation service. The idea is to transfer much of its work to private sector companies and voluntary bodies. Ministers hope that there'll be significant savings, but the Probation Officers Union, NAPO, believes public safety will be compromised because fewer staff will be employed. Well, our reporter Simon Thompson has got more details. Good morning, Simon.
Hi, Ian. Good morning.
Morning. How common is reoffending amongst former prisoners?
Well, sadly, it seems very common. In 2011, a record number of offenders sentenced for serious crimes were found to have committed previous offences. Some 90% of those, in fact, who were sentenced across England and Wales had offended before, and almost a third had committed or were linked to 15 or more crimes. Now, it seems, Ian, the government's turning to the private sector to try to cut those reoffending rates.
What's the Justice Secretary proposing?
Well, at the moment, the Public Sector Probation Service, through its 35 trusts across England and Wales, manages most, or if not all, released prisoners and people serving community sentences. What Chris Grayling's proposing is to shift responsibility from the probation service to the private sector for some 200,000 medium and low-risk offenders. So private companies and charitable bodies and other public bodies, if they so wish, could bid for probation contracts, and they'll be paid according to their results in cutting reoffending. So if they don't achieve results, they don't get paid. Now, the public probation service will continue, but their focus will shift to the 50,000 high-risk offenders, including all serious violent and sexual offenders. As well as that, the Justice Secretary also wants to see everyone who goes through prison, including those on short-term sentences under a year, given rehabilitation. At the moment, if you're serving less than 12 months, it's voluntary. And these proposals will also go through a very short 4-week consultation period, so he obviously wants to act quickly.
And how is the government promising to back the changes?
Well, what they're promising is a bit of money, not much, £500,000, to pay or support voluntary and community sector groups in helping them prepare bids for probation contracts. So if they haven't bid before, it can be a daunting process, quite difficult to understand, get your head around things. And so that money's there to provide support to these organisations as they prepare their bids. As well as that, the government's promising a network of justice data labs, or one national justice data lab, a bit of a mouthful, but basically a centre to help sharing information on reoffending amongst the different rehabilitation organisations. Now, Chris Grayling, the Justice Secretary, says what we do at the moment is send people out of prison with £46 in their pocket and no support at all. No wonder, he says, we have such high levels of reoffending. We know across the public, private and voluntary sectors there's a wealth of expertise and experience, and we need to unlock that to try and reduce those reoffending rates.
What's been the reaction to the plans?
Very negative, it has to be said. Harry Fletcher from the Probation Officers Union NAPO, expressing real alarm about these changes, or these proposed changes, says the government's plans are astonishing, purely ideological, and says they haven't thought through the consequences. He also warns that reforms could compromise public protection. Now, Juliet Lyon, she's director of the Prison Reform Trust, a similar message from her. She says, why not build on the success of joint work by probation, police and voluntary organisations, for example, where they have worked with offenders. They've managed on the probation service schemes, they have managed to actually cut reoffending to about 35%. And she says, why not focus on the work that's already been done rather than try and break up the probation service and put the public at risk, she suggests.
Simon Thompson, thank you very much indeed.
Call 08459 455 555.
08459 455 555.
BBC Three Counties Radio.
Now, we all love a little bit of Justin Dealey, don't we? He's one of the greatest assets that this station has, and I mean that genuinely. I think he's a breath of fresh air, and I think he's a fantastic broadcaster. Justin, I could never say it to your face, but I can say it over the airwaves like this.
Oh, Ian, I love you too. Good morning to you.
Good morning to you. But I'm not the only person that loves you.
Are you talking about this guy that was in contact a couple of days ago with this song? Is that what you're talking about?
Yeah, this is a guy called Scott.
Yes.
He's a friend of mine. I know him, and he is a huge fan of yours. Genuinely, there is no sarcasm. There is no irony. He genuinely thinks you're brilliant. Okay,
bless him, he needs to get his ears syringed.
No, he does. He thinks you're funny. He's a bit of a geezer like you, Just.
Yeah,
bit of a geezer.
One of the boys.
And he keeps texting me photographs of you. But also, he's taken it one stage further. He's written a song. He sent me a recording of the song. Would you like to hear it?
Yes, I'd like to hear it. I'm slightly concerned, but I would like to hear it, please.
It's called I Love Justin Dealey. And it goes like this.
1, 2, 3. I love Justin Dealey from Beds, Hearts and Bucks. He's got a lovely honest voice. Even though I love him, guess I'm out of luck. 'Cause he's just one of the boys. But I'm gonna make him love me, gonna make him care, gonna run my fingers through his hair. You don't love me, Dealey, but I love you, and I know exactly what to do. somebody new, then I know exactly what to do. Gonna take you to my favourite record fair, gonna buy you every record there. I love Justin Dealey from Beds, Hearts and Bucks. Beds, Hearts and Bucks.
Woo! Yeah. Oh, I like that. Thank you, Ian.
Oh, it's made me giggle so much.
I love the bit about the record fairs because he's got me spot on there.
He knows you. Would you be impressed if he bought every record there for you?
Yes, I would be. I'd be very, very impressed. Very impressed indeed.
Now, how do you find that? He was worried that you might find that a little bit scary and consider it bullying.
Yes, it's just slightly creepy. But it's nice. He's got a good voice. And the song makes perfect sense. You know, running his fingers through my lovely soft blonde hair. He's got a point.
Justin, you're a good sport. I'll speak to you later on. Thank you very much indeed.
Across Beds, Hearts and Bucks, this is Iain Lee on BBC Three Counties Radio.
Dear, oh dear, oh dear. I was toying with the idea of getting Scott, who wrote that song, on, and I just thought that maybe it could be a little bit too uncomfortable if he finally got to speak to his hero. We may play that again later on in the show. We're talking... look, this next email covers a couple of things. We're talking about brothels for disabled people after a Milton Keynes madam is suggesting that she's going to start one specifically for disabled people. Ben in Buckingham says, as a disabled person who has RP, I don't see any problem with a brothel for disabled people, as some may find it hard to attract a partner, and everybody has needs, as they shouldn't be discriminated against. Ben then goes on to tick another box for us. We're talking about complaining. We're complaining more and more in this country. When did you last complain, and what was the best thing you got out of it? Ben says, on the subject of complaints, my dad is excellent and has had things like money-back vouchers, bottles of wine, just for making a complaint. It does pay off. As I say, I got £250 worth of vouchers for an excellent, an upper-class high street store. When I say high street store, it's not in every high street. I bought a dining table and a couple of chairs to go with it. Superb. Lovely. When was the last time you complained? And what did you get out of it? The other thing we're talking about... I've only been here 3-4 months. I think I'm beginning to get the right judgment of you. You're an intelligent bunch of listeners, OK? You are scientific, you are rational, you think things through. We're talking about complementary medicine today, and I can't believe that any of you listening to this are those wishy-washy sorts that actually buy into homeopathy, that actually think Reiki works, that go to the Chinese herbal shop on the high street. I tried all of this stuff years ago, about 25 years ago. It's all a load of old nonsense. It doesn't work. Those Chinese herbs, it's a load of bark you boil up. It tastes like licorice. And all it did was give me bad skin. Homeopathy, it's an element that's been watered down to 1,000%... No, hang on a second. 1,000th of its natural strength. How is that going to work? How is taking an arnica tablet, when there's hardly any arnica in it, going to calm you down? Aromatherapy? We smell to get well. Oh. Crystals. Oh, dear. Magnets and copper. Now, look, I'm sure that you listening to this, you don't believe in this nonsense. You are too intelligent to buy into this guff. If you have tried it, or if a member of your family, let's be honest, your wife, it's going to be women, isn't it, that's tried this. If a woman in your life has tried any of this nonsense, could you give me a call? A couple of lines free now. 08459 455 555. The defenders of homeopathy say, well, it can't be a placebo because there are tests where they've given it to their dogs. Yeah, and how can it be a placebo? A dog doesn't know what's going on, yet the dog gets well. No, it doesn't work. It doesn't work at all. 08459 455 555. If you're a practitioner in one of these ridiculous fringe treatments, could you give us a call? I'll be generous and gentle with you. Love to hear your point of view and your case studies of people that it's worked for, because I just can't believe in it. The only one of those fringe things that works is osteopathy, and I know that because I've done it. And there's kind of a loose science to it. It's the manipulation of bones and muscle to achieve a result. So that does work, and that's obvious that it works. But and what is Reiki? Is that the laying on of hands? Is that aligning your chakras? I used to believe in chakras and all of that tosh. It doesn't work, does it? It's complete and utter nonsense. If you've ever used it, and you disagree with me, or you're a practitioner, could you give us a call? Look, 2 lines free now. But before that, here's the weather with Kate Kinsella.
That's your forecast.
Kate, you seem like a lovely lady, but from what little... No, you do. From what little I know, though, I kind of get the impression that maybe you're a little bit airy. Are you a fan of homeopathy and things like that?
Not so much now. There was a time earlier on in my life where, yes, I was banging into it. But,
Can you be banging into homeopathy?
And now I don't have time now. I'm sure it's all very nice and lovely.
I was banging into it when I was...
I'm kind of airy.
Huh?
You described me as airy.
Got to move on, Kate. Lovely to talk to you. Oh, my goodness. She picked up on that. I didn't think she'd heard. A new report shows there's a lack of evidence to prove complementary therapies work. Arthritis Research UK says the findings give a mixed picture, with some therapies being effective, but not for all conditions. They also give each treatment a safety rating. Well, Professor David Cahoon is a leading pharmacologist from the University College of London. Joins me now. Good morning, Professor. Oh, Professor, are you there? Professor. We'll come to you in a second. Let's go to Anna Lee Robinson, is from Bovingdon. Good morning, Anna.
Good morning.
You've tried all kinds of therapies which have worked well for both you and your family. What kind of things have you tried?
It started off with the Vega test for my son, which my son had some severe behavioural problems when he was growing up.
Yes. The Vega test?
The Vega test is an invasive test to find out any intolerances or allergies that you have. And that picked up when he was about 3.5 that he had severe intolerances to salicylate. Now, I'm anaphylactic to Nurofen and aspirin, which is salicylate-based. So it doesn't normally run in families. It just so happened that he had a severe intolerance to it. Now, he hasn't got an allergy because he won't die from it. I would die from my allergy.
So you would die if you took Nurofen or aspirin?
Yes.
Wow.
Yes. So Harry has an intolerance, or had an intolerance to salicylate. And this affected his brain, his body. He couldn't process the salicylate. Now, salicylate is a natural chemical found in all fruit and vegetables, and it's in your diet everywhere.
Right.
Now, through processes, we cut out all the really high valued salicylate fruit and vegetables. They had a very, very basic diet. Through the years we progressed. We then went on to kinesiology, and that worked.
Kinesiology?
Really well. Kinesiology is muscle testing, and muscle testing is where the body's able to describe to the practitioner what is happening within the body. Now, when he saw the first kinesiologist, and I travelled 200 miles to see the kinesiologist, because you become connected to these people. And basically, when he was about 5.5, and I can't remember the years now, it was so long ago, he had all his baby reflexes still, which meant that he was lashing out at other children. And
just so I know, we've got the professor back and he has to go in a few minutes, how did the alternative therapies help that?
Basically, it stopped this lashing out. The food allowed his brain to cope and communicate properly, because when he was very young, he was unable to communicate. He could talk, but he couldn't communicate properly.
Let me just go to the professor. Professor, you heard there Anna Lee talking about things like kinesiology and things like that. What do you make of all that? Hello, Professor?
Hello, yes.
Yes, can you hear me?
Yes, I can hear you now, thank you.
Excellent stuff.
Kinesiology is complete and utter myth. Utter rubbish. Oh, dear, oh, dear.
Anna Lee seems to have positive experience of kinesiology.
Well, I expect it just got better anyway. That's the usual case.
Anna Lee?
Well, if you have a son that's been diagnosed with ADHD and Asperger's, and you have doctors that actually won't help you, and the NHS actually described me when we went to actually see a consultant that it was my parenting that was the actual problem, then when you don't have help from the NHS, who are supposedly there to help and support families, then you try other measures.
Professor, Anna Lee was desperate, and she wasn't getting help from conventional routes. Can you blame her for turning to alternative therapies?
Well, no, not really, but there's definite evidence that kinesiology doesn't work for anything. But the reason why...
Have you personally had a child that has been diagnosed with any serious problems? Have you had a child that you haven't got support for? Have you had a child that you've seen turn from a child that can't communicate that is now into mainstream school? Have you seen that? Have you gone
let him answer, Professor.
through that problem?
Professor?
I haven't had that particular problem.
Exactly.
My son has had problems. No, it's just very easy to be fooled. The reason that people try these quack things is largely because conventional medicine can't do anything. And it's very sad that it can't do anything, but it's the case. And things like low back pain, for example, 85% of cases you don't even know what causes it, and you can't do much about it. Acupuncture doesn't work, contrary to what Arthritis Research UK say.
Acupuncture is amazing, and I've done acupuncture myself, and I haven't cost the NHS loads of money by going to and from. I go and see Beta Health Clinic in Hemel, Martin Sillerton. He saw me once for a trapped nerve in my arm. He put the needles in, and I tell you what, I never had to go back after one treatment, and I couldn't move my arm.
There's evidence,
Only
Professor.
Yesterday did I send a colleague to work who's got a slipped disc, who actually couldn't move her neck, and she went to see him, and after she came back, she was able to move her neck.
Professor, there's evidence. There's two case studies.
Oh, I've got more. My husband...
Hang on, let's let him talk. Go on, Professor, sorry.
Case studies are worthless. You have to have proper randomised controlled trials, and when they're done, there's 3,000 trials being done on acupuncture, and they show that it has... if you compare acupuncture with sham acupuncture, they always come out the same. If you compare acupuncture with no acupuncture, which of course is not blinded, then there's a slight advantage for acupuncture, but it's not big enough to be clinically significant. That's the facts of the matter. Everything else is people getting better anyway.
Right, okay, so we go to the doctors on a Sunday night to A&E. My husband's broken his ribs. They don't do anything. They don't do anything for broken ribs. He's actually not only broken his ribs, they've splintered, and in the end we had to go and see a acupuncturist to actually get the pain relieved from his head that the broken ribs had actually caused from the fall. Then he got pleurisy because the bones had gone, it scraped his lungs, and the hospitals did nothing because there is nothing they can do for broken bones in a rib. So you tell me...
No, that's right, there isn't anything. You're right.
Yeah, but so my husband, in the end, had severe pain in his head because of the fall, and we've had to go and get the pressure released, and we were told that we had to go for an MRI or one of these big scans, but the doctor couldn't send us that night, but he thought maybe we had a blood clot on the brain, and it wasn't urgent, but we needed to go next day.
But you didn't get an MRI scan with the acupuncturist, did you? That's just the NHS being pushed to it.
The NHS
is pushed to its limits.
Pardon?
The NHS is pushed to its limits.
Absolutely. And I have to say, the NHS, if people like me and other people followed the alternative routes, the doctors, the professors, wouldn't have the money they have now because it's all money spinning. I've been to the homeopathist. I've had my son, who was in a specialist school, is now into mainstream school after having a course of homeopathy and an intense course of homeopathy. Why do people travel all over the world to see Natasha Lindemann in Bedford, who is the most...
Anna Lee, listen, we're running out of time. We put that to Professor. Professor, people swear by homeopathy.
Homeopathy is utter fraud. There's nothing in the pills whatsoever. It's a very good example. The reason they go to them is because they're desperate, because there are some things which conventional medicine can't cure, but homeopathy is the most obvious of all the frauds because there is nothing whatsoever in the pills. It's very simple.
Are you outdated? Are you in the old-fashioned state that you're obviously in the old-fashioned state that medicine will be the only thing that will cure anything. You haven't come.
I'm just saying the opposite.
Years ago, when they were the cavemen and everything, they didn't have.
Yeah, and they died really young, Annalie.
They did.
They died really young.
I'm not saying they didn't die young, but they coped with many more things than we have to cope with now. And I have to say that we are a nation that is living longer because of food, etc., but not down to all the health.
Okay, Annalie, listen, we're out of time. Professor, I'll let you have the last word.
It's very sad that people get taken in by these therapies, which are little more than fraud. And the reason they do it, as I say, is because there are some things which conventional medicine can't do very well at, so they get desperate and they go to these crackpots. And that's very sad.
Professor David Calhoun, thank you very much indeed. And Annalie Robinson from Bovingdon, who tries all kinds of therapies and believes in two completely different views. Annalie mentioned the cavemen there. They died really young. They all died really young. Well, what do you think? Annalie almost literally swears by it, whereas the professor thinks it's crackpots and nonsense. What are your views? What are your stories? 08459 455 555. People get very passionate about this, and Annalie seemed to buy the whole thing. I've had acupuncture. Didn't do anything for me. It hurts. Acupuncture hurts. Oh, this needle won't hurt. Yeah, the needle in my calf muscle, that hurts. Sorry, you've caught me eating a chocolate. How rude. I could have waited till the news, but someone came in, Kelly Betts came in with some chocolates that don't even belong to her, and I had two. We're taking more of your calls after 8 and the latest news with Catherine Boyle.
BBC Three Counties Radio, first for news.
I don't know if you heard that discussion between the professor and Annalie, who's a fan of alternative therapies, Catherine. Did you know there was no treatment for broken ribs?
I didn't know that. Well, I suppose, what do you plaster? I thought people got plastered from the neck down.
Yeah, I've seen people with plasters around their body. So if you break a rib, what happens? It just stays there, broken.
What if it's all sticky-outy?
Ooh.
Technical term.
Technical, yes. You did well at medical school. Thank you, Catherine. Well, the big headline today, there's no treatment if you break your rib. What do you do? If you've broken a rib, I know I'm speaking to a minority of people now. If you've broken a rib, could you give me a call? What happened? What, you just let it... You smell to get well? Is that what happens? Lots coming up in the last hour of the show before David Prever at 9, including, should there be brothels exclusively for disabled people? A former madam from Milton Keynes certainly thinks so. She wants to open one. We'll debate whether it's a good idea next. There's a growing complaints culture here in the UK. Two things. What's the best way of complaining? And what happened when you did it? And have you been cured or conned by complementary medicine? We're looking at claims that there's little scientific evidence it helps to treat arthritis. What are your experiences with it? Have you tried it? We had a caller just then, a guest on who is a big fan of it and completely advocates it, says it's changed her family's life. What do you think? Lots of ways to get in touch. Facebook.com/BBC 3CR. You can send us a text, 81333, starting your text 3CR, or you can give us a call. Phones are quite busy, but there's still a line free, 08459 455 555.
BBC Three Counties Radio.
Now, a former madam from Milton Keynes says she wants to open the country's first brothel for disabled people. Becky Adams plans to install hoists and ramps and employ prostitutes who understand the needs of disabled people. She joined me on the show earlier this morning.
I have a lot of people who come to me, some who are very, very sort of seriously disabled, soldiers returning from, from Afghanistan and all sorts of different injuries. And they say to me, for all sorts of various reasons, that they're not able to have sex. Many of them physically are incapable of relieving themselves. And I've also had groups of mothers who work as support networks for families with young boys with autism, and who come to me as groups of parents and say, this isn't going to happen for our son or our sons if we don't help them.
Oh, I feel so. If my mum got me a prostitute for whatever reason, I'd feel terrible.
Well, we're not just talking about the sex here. We're actually talking about helping young guys kind of interact with girls.
Oh, that was Madam Becky earlier on. BBC Three Counties reporter Justin Dealey has been speaking to people at the Disability Resource Centre in Dunstable about what they think of the idea.
I think it's a very brave step for her to take, and I think it's one to be congratulated, although I wouldn't want to be trying to sort out the legalities of it personally. It'll be interesting to see how they will market it and how the public will react to it. One hopes the public will quietly accept it, as they do so many other brothels throughout the United Kingdom, but one has to wait and see.
My question is why not? If it's legal and it's not breaking the law in any shape or form, then everyone has that right to choose.
Well, Peter, we've heard from a few men that say this would work. As a lady, can you see this brothel working?
I think it could do. When I used to live in London, there was one on my estate, and that seemed to work for disabled people. My ex-husband's view was that if they can't get it anywhere else and these ladies are offering a discreet service, then why not?
Do you think some people will be outraged by this, though?
I think if they're shallow-minded, then yes, they probably would be. If they don't think about the bigger picture. It might be difficult for some disabled people to find a partner, and this is fulfilling a need that they have. And say if it's discreet, then what's the problem?
I personally wouldn't use one, but I do know there are people that may need, we all have needs, and people do find it hard to meet if they've got disabilities. I can't see why it wouldn't work.
Yeah, I don't have needs anymore. Well, Neil Coyle is from Disability Rights UK, a charity which supports disabled people, and Asta Philpott is a disability consultant who's planning to open a brothel for disabled people in Spain. Morning to both of you.
Morning. Hello.
Neil, we'll start with you first. Is this a good idea?
Well, I think it's recognising that there is a gap in the market, as it were. There are disabled people who have clearly suggested that there is an unmet need. Chris Fulton, who put the issue on the national agenda, if you like, has highlighted a need. Where we have some concerns is the demographics of sex workers suggest that there are many women who come into sex working not necessarily by choice, and there is a mixture of drug and alcohol dependency and mental health problems.
Do many disabled people raise this issue with Disability Rights UK, Neil?
I can't say they do, no. And in the context of just yesterday's vote in Parliament, for example, we'll see more than 1 million disabled people lose out in one way or another through very low rating of benefits. Uprating of benefits to 1% means that as I say, more than 1 million disabled people will be experiencing poverty. So in that context, and in the context of the government taking money away from councils in particular to provide social services, means we get contacted by disabled people, families, carers, older people who say, we don't have enough support to eat, get out, get washed, get clean, those kind of very basic essentials are unmet.
Asta, you're planning to open a brothel for disabled people in Spain, is that right?
Yeah, it's more of I'd say it's more of a therapy centre, really, where people with disabilities can go, have an amazing experience, and more so as well that it's not going to be. It's going to be a non-profit, because I'm going to do it under my charity, After Philpott Foundation. So it's while I agree with Neil, and there are benefits being taken away, and and you've got to watch the ethical thing. But every time we look at sex and talk about sex, it's always from a negative point of view.
So hang on, Asta, are you saying that you're going to be offering in this place in Spain, you're going to be offering disabled people free sex with prostitutes?
Well, that word again, prostitute.
All right,
it's more of a
free sex.
Yeah, it's almost like a holiday. It's going to be called After Virgin Holidays. So people with disabilities that express that longing and to be intimate with another girl or another human being. It's going to be unisex, by the way, as well. Can come to this centre, not only experience just sex, but experience a whole array of therapies, and it's almost going to be like a mini vacation for them as well.
But is it free?
Yeah, absolutely. We're going to do it all because we've got 2 Italians working on a website at the moment, and it's a porn website, and all the profit from the website is going to go to this project to get it off the ground. But I think as a whole, I think we need to stop talking about sex as a negative thing and more as a positive thing. It's the same with disability. Every time we talk about disability, it's either about benefits or this or that. It's always negative. Let's start lifting the consciousness of it and being a bit more positive, and maybe things might turn around. But I think she's a brave lady doing it in this country, because it's going to be tough, and she's going to have... she's going to have a piece of thing. I don't think it'll work.
Neil, Asta's place in Spain, when it gets up and running, it sounds unique. What do you make of a place like that?
Never heard of anything like it. It sounds like a fantastic experience for some people. I would be personally very nervous of using the Virgin brand or and being aware of Spanish law. But coming back to the UK, it's definitely a fair point. The sex laws in the UK are different to other countries. The origin of the campaign to try and generate more public support for disabled people to be able to access relationships like this came from a Dutch model. Obviously, the law is very different in Holland. We have a different system, and anyone looking into this issue needs to be aware of UK law.
Look, I've ever since 2007, when my friend died of muscular dystrophy, he talks about it all the time, wanting this experience, and he died without ever having it. I've explored since 2007 the whole subject, and I know the Spanish law and I know everything. So we're on it, and at the moment I've got a movie out about sex and disability. It's going to be released into England. It's doing really well. We've won loads of awards, so I know the whole game, man. So it's going to work.
And Asta, you know the whole game. You do have a disability, and you've used prostitutes, have you?
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah, and because I want to experience that intimacy.
But you sound. Listen, I've got no idea. I've got no idea what you look like. I've got no idea if you're an ugly bloke or an attractive bloke. But you sound intelligent. You sound witty. You can. I'm sure you could find in quotes in inverted commas a normal relationship without having to pay for sex, couldn't you?
Do you know what? I am not blowing my own trumpet. I am intelligent and I am witty and I am good looking.
Pay extra for that.
Do you know what? People always look at the physical image first, and I think we need to get beyond that and looking at the person within.
Neil, is that right?
Where the true love comes from.
People see the wheelchair or the sticks or the calipers or something before they see the person?
I can't claim any of the attributes that the other concept has. But yes, we do find, disabled people are... there are barriers to forming relationships, and that can be from things like the way public services are configured. So if even in an existing relationship, if a disabled person is told by the local authority, we can only support you in a residential care home, how is that relationship and the sexual part of that relationship going to be sustained? There are disabled people who are told, who are provided with aids and adaptations by a local authority, we need to put you in a specific bed or on a mattress on your bed, which puts you about a foot higher in the bed, this is a real example, than your husband. Now, there are some very practical reasons that social services in particular can interfere in disabled people's relationships. But I think there is a need here. It's gone unrecognised. Disabled people do have sex. Get over it. It might be a bit of a taboo. But disabled people are not equal in today's society, and yet we see massive reductions in the support available to disabled people coming from this government.
Neil, thank you very much. Neil Coyle from Disability Rights UK, and Asta Philpott, a disability consultant who's planning to open a brothel for disabled people in Spain. And hey, guess what? It's going to be free. David Prever.
Good morning.
Good morning, sir. How are you doing? You all right?
I'm all right. You're annoying me, though, frankly.
Excuse me? I beg your pardon?
Yesterday was Bowie, now you're saying Reiki doesn't work.
Oh, come on.
Reiki?
Right. You're a sensible man of science, aren't you?
No, I've tried it all. I'm as wacky as they come.
Have you got a crystal?
Yes!
How are your chakras doing?
Oh, they're okay.
You don't really believe in that, do you?
Yes. Well, some of it.
Do you really?
Yes, I trained as a hypnotherapist, you know.
Well, listen,
look into my eyes.
I used to be a hypnotist.
Did you?
I used to do stage hypnotism years ago.
We're going to out-trance each other. And
I did. I used to do that. It was wonderful. Yes, do shows in pubs and clubs, quite illegally, until they clamped down on it even more. And we'd make people think they were Elvis and forget the number 7.
So you know about the power of the mind, then?
I know about the power of the mind. I also know that homeopathy and Reiki is bullshine.
Mm-hmm.
Oh, look at this. This is great. I'm surprised.
What about acupuncture, then? Because that works.
No, it doesn't.
Yes, it does. does.
It hurts.
Yes, it does. No, it doesn't. You've been to the wrong needle practitioner.
This won't hurt. Were you sticking a needle in my buttock and my calf? It hurt.
Are you sure you went to a genuine one?
I don't know. They were quite big needles. I'm not sure it was a needle, actually. It's something.
This is what we're asking, carrying on from your discussion. Are alternative therapies a waste of time and money? I think it's all about the power of the mind. If it works for you and you can convince yourself that it's working, then it's working, isn't it?
Yeah.
Yeah?
I don't like those. Another thing, those health shops where they come and have an allergy test and they wire you up to a machine and it says, well, you're allergic to 300 different types
I've
of
had
wheat.
that as well.
That is nonsense.
Is it?
Yes, it is.
How
David!
often? Are you at an age where you walk past the Chinese herbal medicine shop and they've got the list of conditions in the window?
Yeah.
And you can tick every single one?
Yeah, pretty much.
I can go through all of them.
Yeah,
pretty much. Hair loss? Yeah. Backache? Yep.
My hair's still pretty thick.
Yeah, you're doing okay. Not much longer, though.
So you're a believer in all of this?
Most of it, yes, I think I am. But we'll discuss.
Every morning you surprise me.
Yes.
And amaze me. And excite me.
Yeah, we are.
08459. Thank you, David. See you later on. Have a good show.
Much.
08459 455 555. You can send David an email. If you want to get in touch with him and the team now, send them an email, jvsshow@bbc.co.uk. Put your phone number and a little line about what you want to talk about, and you may get a phone call. We are talking about complementary and alternative medicines. Janine is in Houghton Regis. Good morning, Janine.
Good morning.
It's nonsense, isn't it?
Some of it, but not all of it.
Go on, what bits do you like?
Well, I used to be a hypnotist, but that's not why I'm ringing in.
No.
I'm ringing in because I heard about cranial osteopathy.
Yeah.
And I decided to take my son for cranial osteopathy. Before he was diagnosed with Asperger's, we didn't know then that was, some of his bizarre behaviour was down to that.
How old was he at the time?
When we took him, he was probably about 3. Maybe 2.
Okay, right.
Yeah, a bit young. Between 2 and 3. Now, the reason I took him was because he had a bit of a bizarre behaviour, and I'd heard that cranial osteopathy was good for babies anyway. During the course of his treatment, a kinesiologist decided to test him for food allergies because he had...
Now, what is this kinesiology? Is this the thing where you get plugged into a machine?
No. They what they did, I didn't know anything about it before now, or before then. What they did was they put various food substances on his arm while they manipulated his head.
Oh my God!
And
really?
Yes, it sounds bizarre, doesn't it?
Yes.
But at the time, he had a constant runny nose. He was always dribbling. His cheeks were bright red, and he used to get really angry, which is, I know you think, well, terrible twos and all that, but it was not the same. And I just put the dribbling and the red cheeks and everything down to teething. Anyway, the kinesiologist told us he had a sucrose intolerance. So I thought, okay, fair enough. We'll do this. We'll go along with this. So we took him off sucrose, and it wasn't easy because there's sucrose in everything. So we took him off sucrose, and within 2 weeks, his behaviour had changed. The red cheeks had gone down. The dribbling had stopped. So we thought, right, we'll test it. So we gave him sucrose again, and it seems that sucrose used to take maybe 2 or 3 hours to get into his system, and 2 weeks to get out again.
Have you got all this through a kinesiologist?
It was through a cranial osteopathy.
Right, hang on a second. Laura is my producer. Laura?
Yes.
You're on that one there. Hello, Laura.
I am.
Listen, we've heard this kinesiology mentioned several times this morning. I've never heard of it. Can we arrange a session where I go to a kinesiologist?
Definitely.
And find out what I'm allergic to?
I'll look it up now. We'll get it booked in for tomorrow.
Yes, Janine?
What you could do is contact the Cranial Osteopathy Centre for Children.
But I'm 39.
No, it's okay. They deal with adults as well.
Even though they've got the word children in the title.
Well, they deal with young people up to the age of 19, but also with their mothers. Now, I know you're not a mother.
I tick none of those boxes.
But, there might be someone there.
Janine?
They can talk. But can I just tell you about my daughter as well?
Very quickly, because I've got David and Sarah who want to have a word.
Okay. I took her for cranial osteopathy because she was going to have air grommets. I didn't want her to have an operation.
Yeah.
And she went for a few sessions of cranial osteopathy. We went back to see the consultant for the next stage of this this process, and he said, "Oh, well, she's fine." And she'd had bunged up ears for years.
And he fixed her with a couple of sessions?
With cranial...
Okay, well, listen, Jenny, we have to end it there. So, Laura, I want to see a kinesiologist.
Great.
And I want to find out what I'm allergic to. Because I get headaches, and I get a bit bunged up from time to time. So, can we sort that out?
We'll definitely sort it out, and we'll update everybody tomorrow.
Very, very exciting. I'm going to see a kinesiologist, a word I'd never even heard until an hour ago. Thank you, Janine. David's in Marsh Farm. Good morning, David.
Good morning.
Are you a fan of this nonsense?
Yes, most definitely.
Go on. What do you use?
I use some. Can I name it?
Well, is it a company?
Well, no. I saw an advert in a.
No, don't name it. What kind of thing is it?
Oh, it's a tablet and a jelly you rub on.
A jelly you rub on?
Yeah.
And what's it for? Arthritis?
Arthritis.
Where do you rub it?
Wherever it has hurting. 2010, I had a hand come up 3 times the size its normal size.
Wow.
I went to hospital. In the end, they operated.
Yeah.
And I was off work for about 6 weeks because I couldn't do a blooming thing with this blooming hand. Even a job to dress yourself, let alone do your shoes up.
Yeah.
And then it seemed to get better. Then last year, it come back again.
You probably could have qualified for this brothel in Spain, by the way, David.
Oh, no, I don't want one of them.
No, OK. So it came back?
It came back again, and I went back to the hospital, and I saw... I was going to say what... I saw... I went to a rheumatology department at the L&D.
Yes.
And I saw a foreign doctor who sent me for a chest X-ray.
Yes.
And I went with a bad hand. Well, I went for a chest X-ray, I haven't a clue. Neither does anybody else.
Yes.
I was reading the Saga magazine, I saw this stuff advertised. I thought, well, in for a penny, in for a pound.
Well, you say in for a penny, in for a pound. How much does this stuff cost you?
Well, it cost me over 100 quid.
Here we go, David.
But I'm now on my second lot, and it's totally worked. And I used to have sciatica, and that's since gone as well.
How big was your hand? Was it massive? Did you have a massive hand?
It was so big, and the middle finger, which they operated on, was about 3 times the size of a normal finger.
Well, it could be useful if you lived in America and you were angry with people. They flip that instead of the V's.
Yeah.
But so you reckon this... What's in this stuff? Have you read the ingredients?
It's all herbal, and I showed it to the doctors. They are quite amazed, and they said it obviously must be working.
Yeah.
Because they signed me off. Now, can I tell you something else?
Why not? I like you.
Years ago, I had for many years, I had a thing called ulcerative colitis, if you know what that is.
I don't know what it is. It sounds very unpleasant.
It's a very bad bowel disease.
Oh, yes.
And the doctor was going to give me a temporary colostomy.
Oh, dear.
And I was a bit down in the mouth.
I bet you're down somewhere, yes.
Yeah, and I was in a health shop, and I saw a book called Colitis and Crohn's disease. And I was reading it in this health shop, and it said in there to take all these vitamin pills, ignore your prescription pills, totally don't take any of them.
Oh, David.
And I thought, in for a penny, in for a pound again.
Yes.
And I did it, and lo and behold,
it
colitis
worked.
has got...
Can I just say to listeners, if a doctor, don't just stop taking your prescribed medicine because a book says so. I mean, David, it seems to have worked for him there. But listen, if a doctor has prescribed you medicine, I would suggest you go and discuss that with him first. Sarah is in Long Crendon. Morning, Sarah.
Hello there, Ian.
Everyone seems to be in favour of what I would call nonsense. Have you tried any of this stuff?
I haven't personally, and I have to say, up until the point that I started getting it for my son, I would have said absolutely, yeah, mumbo-jumbo, load of nonsense. However...
What's changed your mind?
My son has Tourette's syndrome.
Right.
And he's had it since he was 12.
What kind does he have? Does he have the verbal kind or the physical tics?
He has both. He has verbal and physical.
Okay.
And the drugs that he has for the Tourette's syndrome work fantastically, normal national health things. However, one of the side effects is that it can cause depression.
Okay.
Also, with people who have Tourette's syndrome, they kind of naturally get depression anyway because of the way society treats them.
You would imagine they would, yes.
Yeah.
And also he's 16, and 16 is also a time for depression as well, so everything combined is not looking great.
Absolutely. Because he's 16, the National Health Service cannot prescribe him antidepressants. And so... in a fit of desperation, I mean, bearing in mind this is a child who'd been on suicide watch for 3 years. Fit of desperation, I thought, right, let's see what else we can find that's out there. He's now on high-dose St John's wort and high-dose 5-HTP. I'm not going to say that it's cured him. It absolutely hasn't. But it keeps him on an even keel. He's not on suicide watch anymore, and as a 16-year-old, he seems to know that he absolutely knows they're working, because when they're starting to run low, he comes downstairs and says, "Mum, they're running low. Please, can you get me some more?"
Does that is it working because, the placebo effect? He's been told it's working.
No. I mean, don't get me wrong. I mean, he's got Tourette syndrome, but he's not stupid by any stretch of the imagination.
Well, no, the placebo effect isn't in any way an implication that someone's stupid. It's a known factor in helping people get well.
Well, no, because when I presented them to him, he kind of rolled his eyes along with me rolling my eyes.
Yeah.
And said, well, don't think they're going to work in a typical 16-year-old way.
It's a great impression, yes.
Yeah.
Good.
But the fact is that they do, and if he does run out for whatever reason, generally because the postal service is so rubbish they don't get here on time, you notice a definite decline in his behaviour and the way that he starts to sort of burrow in his room.
Well, Sarah, listen, thank you for that. I'm glad things are working out for your boy, and it sounds like they're having an effect. 3 very convincing stories there. We heard of the gentleman with the massive hands, the sausage fingers. I don't know if he used that phrase himself or if I just thought it and perhaps shouldn't have said it out loud. The Sarah and her depressed son. What do you think? Is it convincing you that maybe this stuff actually does work?
And that's your latest news and sport. More from me at 9 o'clock.
Well, it sounded like you were going to give us more, and then you
I was always going to do weather, and then I thought you don't deserve it.
No, cheeky.
The BBC in beds, hearts and bucks. This is BBC Three Counties Radio.
She's right. We don't deserve the weather. We've not been good enough. Morning, this is Iain Lee, BBC Three Counties Radio, here until 9 o'clock, and then David Prever is filling in for JVS for the rest of the week. Lots coming up in the last 30 minutes, including a report claims there's a lack of evidence to prove that complementary therapies work. Have you been cured or conned by complementary medicine? And a very famous house in Hertfordshire has been repossessed. Legend has it was home to a highwaywoman, who carried out her robberies at night time. Well, Justin Dilley has been finding out about its history. He'll be telling us about it before 9. And if we get the chance, we'll try and play that Justin Dilley song one more time before the end of the show. Now, complaining. You have a meal at a restaurant, it's not very nice. What would you do? Would you complain? Would you kind of just shut up and take it meekly? Or your microwave breaks? What do you do? Go back to the shop? Research published by the Institute for Customer Service suggests that there is a growing complaints culture here in the UK. You're more likely now than you were 5 years ago to have a good old moan when you're unhappy. BBC Three Counties reporter Justin Dilley has been finding out how much we really do complain.
Now, Craig, you complained, 3 or 4 weeks ago in a restaurant. Why did you complain? That's the first question.
The standard service was pretty poor and the food wasn't up to standard.
OK, so what happened next? Did they do anything for you?
Yeah, they discounted the bill at the end of the evening. They refunded some of the money back for the food.
So it pays to complain then?
It definitely pays to complain.
I mean, this report's saying today that we're more likely now to complain compared to 5 years ago. Have you always complained? Have you always liked a good old moan, Craig?
Oh, definitely. We always have a complaint. always complain.
But your complaint, you would say, is always valid, though. You don't complain for the sake of it. You complain when something is genuinely wrong.
Yes, definitely. If it's wrong, you make them aware of it, and that's all you can do to improve the service.
And your mate complains all the time, I hear, is that right?
He does. He spends a lot of time away in hotels, and he always writes to them if he's had a bad stay, and sometimes he gets a free weekend out of it. Sometimes he just gets a letter saying sorry for the inconvenience, and that's it.
Well, here's Darrell. Darrell, you are looking so glamorous this morning.
You want to go to Specsavers, love?
No, I think I'll find the way I am. How often do you complain?
Quite often if the service is not good.
Mm-hmm.
Yes, but I always speak to people properly, and most of the time I get it is resolved. Yes.
One of your last big complaints was about food. Now, when you made that complaint, did anything happen? Were you given a refund or anything like that?
Oh yes, I didn't have to pay, which was quite
refund?
nice. Yes. Yeah. Oh yes.
It's good if you complain. If you do it politely, I think that's the way. Do it politely. And also, if you've got a problem with a product or something, the customer helplines, and they can't really do a lot. I always send it... I go to those places first of all, point of contact, and then I find out the email address of the CEO, and I send them an email. And I CC in as many important people as I can from that company. So I did with my curtains when they were late. It cost me a blooming fortune, these curtains. And they were late, and I was furious. Complained to them, there's nothing we can do, sir. Sent an email to the CEO. Within a day, his secretary emailed me back. I do apologise. We'll sort this out. In the meantime, would £250 worth of vouchers go some way to helping you? I said, oh, yes, they would do very, very much indeed. 08459 455 555. Have 80, there we go, thank you. Sorry, it said on my screen that one of the next guests was 8 years old. I found that very difficult to believe, particularly when he says he spent over £1,000. We'll talk to Mike in a second. Have you been cured or conned by complementary medicine? A report shows that there is little scientific evidence to prove it works, particularly when it comes to arthritis and back pain. Well, Arthritis Research UK carried out the research. Mike Harvey is from Flitwick and is sceptical. You're 80 years old, aren't you, Mike?
Yes, indeed.
It said on my screen 8, and I was sceptical. You spent over £1,000 on trying to relieve the pain on the left side of your body. We'll come to you in a second, but first of all, I want to speak to Simon Charles, who is a homeopath from Abbots Langley. Good morning, Simon.
Oh, morning.
It's all a load of old nonsense, isn't it?
No. I have been doing this for over 32 years, going on my 33rd year, and I treat every condition in the book, except I don't do surgery or dentistry. And there are a lot of very effective homeopathic medicines for arthritis. There have been many trials in the past, blind trials, double blinds, and they've always been found to be very successful.
How successful? What's the success rate?
Well, the information seems to get suppressed. I mean, people vary. Some people are strong, some people are weak. Some people are much drugged on orthodox medications. They're the hardest of all to treat. Because that is painkillers, nothing for the immune system, which is what's required.
Simon, who do you think is suppressing this information?
Well, the British medical journals, it appears now and again. You see, homeopathic medicine doesn't make any money because it's so economic. I mean, I've got about 2,000 medicines on my shelves, and the cost would be about £20,000. The same number of drugs will be into millions.
Are you really suggesting that doctors are part of a conspiracy to suppress the effectiveness of homeopathy?
Well, those are your words, not mine, but I mean, that's what happens, because homeopathy is bad business from the point of view it doesn't make money.
But doctors want to make people well.
Do they? I see. Okay, right.
Don't they? Well, that's a surprising accusation. Do they not?
Well, maybe they want to keep themselves in business, because they earn well, don't they? The thing is, I'm an alternative, right?
Yeah.
I don't fight with the doctors. I don't resent the doctors because they give me all my business. I'm supposed to be a lesser man than a doctor, and I see all the people at the end of the queue where orthodoxy has failed, and I'm the man who's supposed to sort it out, and about 70% of the time I do.
OK, well, let's have a word with Mike. Tell us exactly what your problem is that you spent so much money on.
Well, a few years ago, about 13 years ago, I was diagnosed with what they said was a stroke. But they could never find any evidence that I'd had one. I had all the MRIs, all down my back and CAT scan and everything else. I had 2 or 3 of them, and they could never find anything. But I was treated for a stroke anyhow. It got to the stage where they told me that although I got all this pain, there was no way they'd got anything in the toolbox to help me.
Right.
I couldn't do it because I'd gone through all the lot.
So you thought you'd try alternative medicines?
Yes, that's right.
What have you tried?
Acupuncture.
Yeah?
Yeah.
Any good?
No good at all.
No, didn't do anything?
Didn't do anything at all.
Did it hurt you when those needles went in?
No.
Oh, OK.
No, I had a lot of them.
Yeah.
Over a period of about 2 months, I think it was.
Right. And how much did you spend on acupuncture, do you know?
£620.
Wowzers. OK. And no effect whatsoever?
None at all, no.
Have you tried anything else?
Well, what else is there? What else will help anything to do with the nerve endings?
Well, let's ask
you
Simon.
You can't get anything that does anything for nerve endings.
Let's ask Simon. Simon, Charles, homeopath, could you help Mike?
Well, the thing is, some people are curable and some people are not. There are various reasons for that. Strokes, high blood pressure, heart attacks and arthritis are all related. They're all acid conditions. Basically, it's a sugar condition. It's also related to diabetes as well. Now, homeopathically, we've got, in one of my books, 108 remedies for arthritis for a start, including various kinds of back pain. The most common one is arnica, which is a damage remedy, an accident remedy, and a pain remedy. Rhus toxidendrins, which is poison ivy, also works for the muscles and various fluids in the body between the joints. Ruta graveolens, another remedy, works for the long bones, the small joints, and also tendons and ligaments.
And you can take these...
Oakum works for the nerves as well. I also have the remedies of synovial fluid and cartilage also.
And you can take these all together, can you?
Well, you can do, yes, because, the old classical system of homeopathic medicine of giving one remedy at a time doesn't work anymore in these modern times of high toxicity from drugs.
So do you think that if Mike was to take a cocktail of these homeopathic...
No, he needs to see a proper practitioner.
Yeah, that's what I'm saying.
Puncture is usually very good for pain blocking, and sometimes it will raise the immune system as well. Osteopathy is another way, chiropractic is another way, massage, but diet is most important, plus one's mental attitude as well.
But if he saw a homeopath...
If he found a good one, yes.
Yes. And you say the mental attitude... Because if I go to my doctor and I take some antibiotics, as I did over Christmas for sinusitis... my mental attitude is almost irrelevant because that drug is going to... I was miserable. With this sinusitis, and I still took the antibiotics every day, and it went.
Yes, well, it will do, but it'll come back.
When?
Well, drugs are a sales product, you see. How do you go on selling your product? You guarantee to keep on creating the need for it. So they're only short-term, the antibiotics, and killing bacteria off when you've got a virus is a stupid thing to do.
But it killed my sinusitis. It got rid of it. I can function again.
But it will come back.
But when?
We have lots of remedies for sinusitis homeopathically as well.
Yeah, but if I have the wrong...
is one, and silica is another. We've got many remedies for that.
But if you have a remedy that you have to believe in for it to work, then that's like wishing on a fairy, isn't it?
Well, why do cats and dogs and horses and things respond very well to homeopathic medicine?
I don't know if they do. I've never seen any evidence that backs that up.
Well, there is plenty if you look up the internet.
The doctors... Simon, I don't believe anything that I read on the internet, for goodness sakes. And doctors... vets are suppressing this.
If you look up the trials and various trials that have taken place, and various information, like the Bacillus flu of 1918, which killed 30 to 40 million people worldwide, the only people successful with that were the homeopaths.
And vets are suppressing the information about homeopathy treatments for animals?
I think when they're trained, they're not particularly taught about homeopathy, so they learn one regime, one discipline, and they don't look further.
Mike, is homeopathy something that you would consider? Simon seems to think it would work.
No, I don't think so. I finished up going to the Ratcliffe Hospital at Oxford, and they said that they could cure my pain. They didn't know what was causing the pain, which was quite serious at times, because there was nothing else that would do anything for it. They got a cure for it. It was a brain operation, and because I'm still waiting for that because it's quite expensive.
Yes.
They said they could cure the pain, but they can't. They don't know what the problem is.
Well, you could go and see someone like Simon, a homeopath, and see that if that works while you're waiting for the operation, couldn't you?
Well, I've spent 13 years going to various people. I've been to nearly all the people you can think of, but none of them have got any answer to my problem.
You won't have been to nearly all the people you can think of, because there are lots more of alternative paradigms that can work well for this.
Simon, how much does treatment cost?
Well, it varies. I'm usually about £91 for a 2-hour consultation the first time round. That will include one's medicines.
And how long does that medicine last for?
Oh, well, I very often will give it for a month or even 3 months or whatever.
And then how much does it cost after that?
Well, my fees are usually the same.
Okay, so that is quite expensive, whereas you can go to the doctor for free.
Because I'm a hypnotherapist and a psychotherapist and a healer as well, and I also do hands-on work, and nutrition also.
But in comparison with going to the GP, which is free, you might pay £7 for the prescription. It is comparatively expensive, isn't it?
You pay for it in your tax, don't you?
Well, exactly. So I've
this gentleman that you're talking to now,
yes.
orthodoxy has completely and utterly failed him. All they're going to do now is painkillers or produce an operation that cuts out the receptor of the brain that receives pain. Well, that's not a cure, that's not a treatment, and what else does it cause? All drugs cause side effects, as do operations as well.
I find it fascinating. Simon, we have to leave it there. Simon Charles, thank you very much indeed for your time. And Mike Harvey from Flitwick. Simon is a homeopath from Abbots Langley. Fascinating. And people get so passionate about this, don't they? Simon obviously passionately cares for the people he treats and cares for the image of homeopathy. Let's get the weather now with Kate Kinsella.
Thanks very much. Well, good morning. Well, it's a rather mild start, or quite mild, 6 or 7 Celsius. Is
you see, airy. That was you being airy.
Okay, sorry.
Welcome.
All right, I'll stand by the airiness for now. That's your forecast.
Kate, thank you very much indeed. We've been talking repossessions all morning, and one famous home which has been repossessed recently is the Mark Yates cell. Legend has it was home to a highwaywoman known as the Wicked Lady, who carried out her robberies at night time. Well, our Ghost and Highways correspondent, Justin Diddy, has been finding out more about the property with local historian Anne Mead. Oh, it sounds spooky. Is it haunted?
Apparently it is. Yeah, absolutely. I'm literally a few hundred yards away from this magnificent property, Ian. It dates back to 1145. It has 18 bedrooms, 79 acres of land, and it was on the market for, come on, guess, how much?
In the area...
Millions.
Oh, I was going to say 350. 350,000? I don't know. £3 million.
No, keep going, going.
5 million.
No, 10 million
Hey, Chihuahua. And it's got a ghost as well. Fantastic.
Fantastic. So, it was on the market earlier this week. It's now off the market.
If I was going to scale down, then that's what I'd go for.
£10 million. It's a lot of money. It's a very famous house. Joining me live here in our radio car is Anne Mead. Anne's a historian. And it's called The Cell. Why is this building called The Cell?
Well, there was a holy lady that came from Huntingdon. She was in the 1100s, and she came here. There was a Roger the Hermit. She was in a cell here, and eventually they formed a monastery with nuns, and the priory became a priory. There was a church there, and it wasn't until the dissolution of the monasteries that Henry VIII gave the property to his friend Henry Boucher.
Let's get down to business now, Anne. Come on. We are told the Wicked Lady lived here. We are told that she is still here. She still haunts the building. Is that true? Is that fact or is that fiction?
Well, it depends who you believe. I haven't seen her, but there are people in the village that will say, oh yes, she rides across the top of the houses. And this is Lady Catherine Ferrers. She wasn't a lady at that point, thinking about it.
Okay, so you're saying that the legends do exist. Do you believe yourself?
Frankly, no.
No?
No, I'm sorry about that.
Just being honest. It was on the market for £10 million. Would you pay £10 million for that property with a ghost?
No. Whether there was a ghost or not there, I still wouldn't pay £10 million.
It was sold, we believe, last time for £4 million. Now, you are going to get a new neighbour. It's probably going to be a celebrity with that figure. Who do you fancy as the next neighbour here at the Cell?
I don't mind, so long as they take interest in the village. It would be nice to have somebody that would be interested in what goes on in the village, and not for us all the village people to pile in and have a look round, but just to have contact with the village.
Okay. To be part of the community. Ian, just lastly, we have a poem here.
Yes.
Are you ready for this?
I'm ready for it, yeah,
this
definitely.
Is fantastic. Okay, Anne, take it away. You have got a poem here about the Cell in Markyate. We are all ears.
Near the cell there is a well. Near the well there is a tree, and 'neath the tree the treasure be. Now what treasure? We don't know.
Thank you very much.
It didn't rhyme at the end. It was all going really well.
You don't need to rhyme at the end.
Of course it does.
Poem. I enjoyed that.
She's right. You do not want the village people piling in, do you?
No,
that would be chaos.
It's a free party, but no, it's a very, very famous building. It was on the market for £10 million. Who buys that? You know, we're yet to know, but we're hoping there, as Anne says, that person can be involved in the local community. But have we got anybody this morning, Ian, who has seen the Wicked Lady? Apparently she is on her horse sometimes, and she rides on the roofs of the property.
What?
In Markyate. Yeah, apparently this is true. Apparently so.
I would love it. I was intrigued that Anne mentioned a character there, Roger the Hermit. She moved in with Roger the Hermit, as though we all knew who Roger the Hermit was. Who is this Roger the Hermit?
You don't know about Roger the Hermit. Tell us more about Roger the Hermit.
Well, a holy man that lived in a hut in the corner of the Cell Park somewhere. Was buried at St Albans Abbey.
There you go.
He's my new favourite holy man.
Yeah, you like him, don't you?
I do. Justin, listen, just going off on a slight tangent. We're talking alternative medicines and therapies and stuff. We had a homeopath who was as angry as a homeopath could be.
Yeah, wonderful.
Are you into all that nonsense?
No, I'm not actually. I can't sleep very well at the moment. I can't sleep in the afternoons. I can't sleep in the evenings. It's a nightmare.
Oh, dear.
People keep on saying, take some lavender, put it on
bit
your
of lavender oil,
It'll work. Hang on a second, Anne. What were you sticking your thumb up here for?
Because it does work.
Really?
Yes.
Oh, I've gone right off, Anne. I like local historians, but no, I've tried the lavender oil.
Yeah.
It doesn't work.
No, do you know what? I've heard, as crazy as this may sound, I've heard that it works in particular for pets. And my mum tried this a few years ago.
Because the next caller is on talking about homeopathy for her dog.
Well,
so yeah, be careful. Go
My
on.
mum had a standard poodle, and on journeys it was a nightmare.
Yeah.
It was always barking. What's that in the background?
Sue?
Yes, hello.
Is that your dog barking in the background?
It is. He's waiting to go out for a walk.
Have a listen to Justin. Justin's talking about his mum using alternative remedies on her dog. Go on, Justin.
I don't know what she used, but on these long journeys, he used to bark the whole way. He'd have a headache, and quite frankly, it was dangerous. So she
Dangerous
gave
for
the
the dog,
something. She had some sort of advice, and she gave him a herbal remedy. And after 5 minutes, he slept the whole way on
There you
every
go.
journey. So apparently, it works for dogs, but for humans, not interesting.
Oh, I don't know. I've got another story.
Go on, Sue.
How much time you got? Yeah,
Justin, can you listen to Sue? You're right for a minute.
yeah.
Go on, Sue. Talk to me and Justin.
Okay. Hi.
Hello.
Hi.
Hi.
Justin, you do this bit. I'm having a break.
I don't know how much time we've got, but my dog, I was recommended by other dog walkers, because my dog is old, so he's suffering now quite badly with, the back legs go, he's arthritic, and I was recommended, it's not expensive, it was only about £4 something from Boots, in their alternative, the alternative medicine area that they have in the chemist. Sorry, I don't know if I should have mentioned.
Well, it doesn't matter. Yes, we've all heard of it, yes.
But, you can get it in other places as well, health shops and that. But, you just give them with their food. It's just like, I think it's supposed to be like a little tincture on top of these little pearl sugar things. So, but, it's not a placebo effect, because it clearly works on my dog.
And what did it do to the dog?
He can walk. If I don't give it to him, which we didn't have any over Christmas, I'd run out. His actual spine starts twisting. He can't walk properly. I'm sure they would have said to me, if I took him to the vet, they'd say, if time's come, you should really have him put down. But if he's on this, he can walk. He's getting old. You can see he still struggles a bit, but he's not suffering. So it's well worth £4 for me. It lasts me nearly a month.
Justin, well, this is Justin with your mum and Sue. By the way, I love your serious voice, Justin. With your mum and Sue, this is evidence that it works.
As I say, there's definitely something in this. I've heard so many stories over the years about pets taking these types of therapies and it working. And of course, let's not forget, we're talking about ghosts here in Markyate. Dogs are also psychic.
Yeah, there you go.
Right, I'm cutting you.
But I've got another quick story.
Go on then, Justin. We'll let you go because you've spattered far too much nonsense for one morning. Thank you very much, Justin Daly. Yes, go on, Sue, quickly.
Yeah, no, with whooping cough, that's quite bad for youngsters. Many, many years ago, my son now, he's 31.
Yes.
Instead of having a whooping cough, the jab.
Yeah.
There was this controversy at the time about, certain people shouldn't have it, it causes side effects. Well, when I went to my GP at the time, because my children suffered with asthma, they said, no, don't have it done.
So did you get a bit of homeopathy?
No, the actual jab.
Yeah.
The main...
Yeah, but what worked in the end, Sue?
Yeah, what it was, they actually, a friend of mine who knew, he's a GP, who also had a homeopathic clinic.
Yeah.
He was a doctor that studied, obviously,
And it worked. It sorted it all out.
Well, what happened was, because you give them the same doses as you would an injection...
Yes.
Then they come into contact with whooping cough. It was quite a bad year that time. My son just had a little cough with a hoop. He was only 14 months old.
And it worked. So I'm ending there. You obviously didn't pick up on my clues that I was trying to end there, and I'm glad it worked for you. Thank you for that. Worked on her baby and her dog. The reason I'm ending is because I would like to play this song one more time. It was sent in by Scott, who is a huge fan of Justin Dealey. Who isn't a fan of Justin Dealey? It's called I Love Justin Dealey.
1, 2, 3. I love Justin Dealey from Beds, Hearts and Bucks. He's got a lovely honest voice. Even though I love him, guess I'm out of luck, 'cause he's just one of the boys. But I'm gonna make him love me, gonna make him care, gonna run my fingers through his hair. You don't love me, Dealey, but I love you, and I know exactly what to do. Gonna wait until you're after somebody new, then I know exactly what to do. Gonna take you to my favourite record fair, gonna buy you every record there. Justin Dealey from Beds, Hearts and Bucks. Beds, Hearts and Bucks.
Thank you. Well, there we go. That's the end of the show. We made it to the end once again. Just about. I might go for a little swim this morning, I'm not sure. Back tomorrow at 6 o'clock. Do stick around, though. David Prever is in, filling in for Jonathan Vernon Smith. I'll see you tomorrow. Ta-ta.
Getting beds, hearts and bucks talking.
This is BBC Three Counties Radio.
Good morning, this is David Prever in for Jonathan Vernon Smith. Thank you to Iain and the team.